Thanks, Neil.
I just want to let the full budget committee know that commissioners
kind of a little bit past the midterm. Everybody happy? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'm
Okay, well, Mr. Cole is welcome. One thing, do you want questions while you're presenting or after?
Actually, both is fine, so feel free to interrupt, and then a wrap up at the end of questions is wonderful.
Okay, and please introduce your team here.
So, actually, I'll go ahead and let my team introduce themselves.
Annie Urbaska, Property and Tax Manager.
Kristen Noble, Executive Assistant.
Eric Smith, Appraisal Manager.
Colleen Danish, Property Tax Supervisor.
Joe Leak, Appraisal Supervisor.
Thank you.
Okay.
also known as the A team, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
I like it.
So I'm going to, excuse me, I'm going to put my reading glasses on. If you know, today's my 50th birthday, so it's a requirement to wear reading glasses now at all times.
I hope I look like it when I'm so funny.
It's kind of a bummer of a birthday night.
It's Michael's birthday. I had a note. See, we're
It's really not the most exciting way to spend a birthday, but actually it's not bad as far as it. I was thinking last night looking at the PowerPoint, and it's amazing how fast time flies. It just seems like it was just months ago, or a couple months ago, that we were having the same budget committee meetings, and it just goes by very quickly. Just as a kind of a preamble, this year's budget is kind of exciting as far as for me, for assessment taxation, managerial staff, in that we're continuing on a course, and not to give up too much information for the slides that are forthcoming, but we've actually added positions the last 2 years. And that's really exciting for me, it's exciting for staff. Looking back at the CAFA grant in prior years, where just 10 years ago, we were at a staffing of around 60 people. Right now, we're at a staffing of 49 with the ad. And so we still have a ways to make up to where we were even just 10 years ago. But we're getting there, and we aren't having to do budget scenario cuts of 10%, 20%, 30%, which really makes the staff feel anxious, anxiety. The retention is not there as far as for employee retention when their job's on the line. So I just wanted to kind of throw up that as a preamble that, again, this year's budget that's proposed is positive. There's some positive additions, and we have a wonderful management team and staff that just works great together. We have challenges, as every department has challenges, and we have needs for future years, but we're moving forward, and I believe everyone's doing such a great job. So I'm going to go ahead and use the PowerPoint for the right buttons here. So I'm not going to obviously read everything as far as the mission of assessment taxation. I think everyone's pretty much aware. The bottom line for assessment taxation is that we're responsible for collecting and distributing taxes to the taxing districts of Lane County. And taxing districts is an interesting term because I think it was commented, I think Jay made the comment of 83, 84 taxing districts. As far as, so I actually went and worked with Danny and to find the exact number of taxing districts, and really interesting. So there's 23 school districts, Lane County, 11 cities, 23 fire districts, 8 water districts, 9 if you count Hasidic, but they stopped levying their bond last year, 2 parks, 5 miscellaneous districts, the library, port, hamlets. There's 5 urban renewal districts, 7 if you count the Eugene ones for different districts. Counting Oregon Department of Forestry, east and west, that's 2. So actually, counting Oregon Department of Forestry, there's 85 taxing districts. And so, but if you look at, there's 11 districts that are levying or non-levying, and sometimes years they levy, other years they don't levy. So there's 11 other districts that we have to keep track of. Then you look at the number of levies, and number of levies, you have 289 levies. So that's, for example, the local option for the sheriff's department, that's one of the 289 levies. And those are each of those levies are information and data and calculations that we have to do every year as far as to be accurate, so the taxes are calculated accurately. So ultimately the tax statements that go out, so ultimately the taxing districts and Lane County receives the money as they should. The 289 levies, actually there's 184 when you take out urban renewal. So please get rid of urban renewal. That's just my schooling on tax districts, and so we'll have to change our motto when we keep saying 83 tax districts to say either 85 or 289, depending on how you calculate it. Assessment taxation has 3 divisions: administration, property tax management, and appraisal. Administration has 2 FTE, myself and Krista, and appraisal has 21 FTE, which is 1 FTE proposed for this year's budget, greater than the prior year's budget. Property tax management has 26 FTE. Total proposed FTE for budget year 18-19 is 49 FTE.
No.
Let me through.
So again, we used to be at 60 FTE 10 years ago. We were at 46 FTE just 2 years ago. So we are at 49 now as proposed budget. So we are moving positive, which is a great feeling. And just a note, the 60 FTE 10 years ago did not include cyclical reappraisal. That was not staffing including that. It was only some hotspot reappraisal when we had the 60 staff members. So changes since adoption of the 17-18 budget. We typical changes, adjustment for represented compensation changes and non-rep comp changes, which I think you've seen in probably most departments as far as for those adjustments. And then we did add 1 vehicle to increase our fleet for appraisers out in the field, so we wouldn't have to wait for cars for the appraisers or use fleet leased cars. This slide is very simple. We're 100% general fund department. It's pretty. That's not necessarily we're getting all our money from the general fund, but 100% as far as budget by fund type is general fund. I wanted to find something exciting or fun to put on the slide, but I really couldn't think of anything to put on there. This one's a little more exciting though, as far as this is our resources. So this is in addition to general fund dollars. I'll start with the bottom, the state revenues. Roughly $1 million of the state dollars is the state revenues is the CAFA grant, and that's our yearly CAFA grant. I was in front of the board approximately a month ago to gain approval to submit the CAFA grant to the Oregon Department of Revenue. It is still under audit and review. And so we're still waiting for responses back. Yesterday they asked for a copy of our entire budget, and they are being audited and reviewed, I believe, by DAS. Department of Revenue for CAFA grants. And so they'll be asking probably up until the last minute in June for information before we get a final. I think June 15th is their deadline as far as for final review and announcement of the grant amounts. But they are putting the CAFA numbers under great scrutiny this year as far as every number that we put down in our grant document. As far as other funds that come into our resources that come into our department, fees and charges, $26,000. That would be charges for example, our sales analyst that does reports for the registered guard or other areas on a monthly recurring basis. We receive funds for that. There's $350,000 for a fund transfer. That's fund transfer for our computer system replacement in the future. And I'll go into that a little bit more in the presentation. Now the next one may have to change this next year as far as, because it's kind of confusing, taxes and assessments. Really, assessment taxation as a department as a whole receives no taxes. So the correct term would probably be late filing fees, real property, late fees, non-filing fees, exemption charges and fees for late charges, foreclosure charges and fees. So that's more applicable for that $300,000 because they're more of assessments and penalties as far as for the amount. And the fines for forfeitures and penalties, that's correct at $87,000. The small amount for property and rentals, $10,000. And again, the majority of our funds that come into our department beyond the general fund is the state revenue for the CAFA grant. For those of you who aren't familiar with the CAFA grant, I assume everyone is, it's a three-part funds that come in. It's a recording fee that is, every document is recorded. There's a $10 charge and a $1 per page surcharge. And other aspect of the CAFA grant is a 4% spread between the 16% and 12% interest rate that we pay back as refund and what the taxpayers pay, and then earnings on those funds. So that's the CAFA grant. We are, I always like to repeat, we're a donor county, and I think next year I'm going to find out exactly how much we are a donor county. Because we, even though I have to beg money back from the Department of Revenue, we actually contribute more to the fund and subsidize other counties with the recording fees that we have. 18-19 budget details. So there are 3 one-time expenditures that are proposed. First one is a vehicle for appraisal. Again, as we add staff, we need vehicles to go out in the field. The appraisal staff that's being added is appraisal staff that is out in the field on the boots on the ground, knocking on doors, appraising residential property, and they're out there knocking on doors. We've been in Springfield this past year and a half doing quite a bit of work out in that area. We have a scanning project that is for our microfiche microfilm. Our microfiche microfilm is degrading as it is in many areas of other counties and state system where you can barely read the microfiche microfilm, and if we don't scan that in, ultimately it'll keep degrading down. Plus, the aspect is right now we have to use our old microfiche microfilm machines to pull up historical documents. By scanning the microfiche and microfilm, you can put it on the internet so the public can view it, and it's much more accessible as far as, so it goes with my philosophy of having as much information possible online for the public. The software replacement fund, one time of $350,000. And for the software replacement fund, we originally established a fund back in 13-14 with an initial amount of around $43,000. And then every year thereafter, we added $50,000 for the 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18, 19, adding the $350,000. And my understanding is we'll stop adding funds every year, and then at the time of need for the software replacement fund, look at how to fund that system, either through one-time funds or other means. Just so information, the assessment taxation computer system, our current system, we wrote the RFP back in '95. It initiated it in '97, '98, '99, and so the system is antiquated. It still works. It's becoming near the end of its life. However, we'll make it work as long as we have to. The estimated cost, based on other Oregon counties, new systems. Washington County is replacing their system right now. Multnomah County is replacing their system right now. Washington County's estimate was $3.7 million for the replacement system. Granted, they're a bigger county. They have probably some more features. Estimated cost is about $2.5 million to $3 million for a new software system replacement. That's still 5 to 7 years away, if not longer. I'll make the system last as long as we need to make it last. So, let's see.
That's a good question.
Yes.
So, Mike, I just want to ask a quick question on that piece. So you say you'll make this system last as long as you need, but can you tell me that, is this system efficient? Is it efficient enough? Is it for your needs? Because, I mean, technology changes so much that if you're talking 5 to 7 years, this is going to be a dinosaur. And so that's why I ask, is this is something that, I mean, I respect that, believe me, and I think it's great that you're adding that in, but sometimes that front end cost alleviates a lot of the costs down the road. So I'm just asking that.
And there are many areas that we would assessment taxation would have a benefit as far as some of the new, such as field technology for the appraisers, other areas that aren't as antiquated as the current system. However, the systems that are available in Oregon, there's probably 4 or 5 main systems that are available, and I don't want to be a trendsetter as far as Multnomah County. With one system, they spent a few $1 million. They put them out of business, and they went with another system, and now they're spending, I don't know how much as far as with the secondary system. Washington County is working with the same vendor that Multnomah County is, so I'd like to have the bugs worked out of the systems. There are advantages of going first because you're going to make it more your own system. But I think that as we get into probably 3 or 4 more years, 3 years, our system works well within its constraints. I think the more driving force might be tax law changes. And as the legislature meets for the long session, there's always rumors and speculation of major changes in tax law, which could drive a new computer system for revamping tax law. Our current vendor under contract is required to meet legislative changes. However, timeliness is a concern sometimes. And so if they meet it a year later and we have to implement and send our tax statements out, that's not much help as far as the system. We have good relations with our software vendor. However, I am 100% open to every system that's out there right now, because back when we did the RFP back in '95, there was even less systems out there, and it was slim pickings.
Okay, I'm just going to say I appreciate the approach, because let Multnomah and Washington County, who are wealthy counties, let them get the bugs out.
Yes.
So I appreciate that. So thank you.
Also proposed for 18-19 is one FTE add. That is a residential appraiser. That residential appraiser, after initial training, would focus on physical reappraisal. They'd be out in the field pretty much every day, knocking on doors, appraising property. A side note on the CAFA grant, and I'm not going to get into the history of where the legislature originally had 30-45% as far as of our expenditures paid for by the CAFA grant. This year, as is last year, is expected to pay 16 to 17%. The information we received approximately 2 weeks ago, I think, was the final forecast was down 0.9%. 0.9%, that's right. So we estimate initially in our budget 16%, so I think our estimation of the CAFA grant is pretty accurate as far as what we're going to receive for 18-19.
Well, I kept my soapbox at home, so.
I always have to be careful, especially when the Department of Revenue sends me emails back and forth asking for documentation for this. It's frustrating sometimes because we're getting money back that it's our money. Partnership. Let's see. Interdepartmental, as far as it's really important, is to work with obviously departments in Lane County, work between departments with LMD, with deeds and records, with all the departments, and that's facilitated by me being on different committees such as the facilities and being active in the management team. Just being a part of the management team as an elected is greatly beneficial to knowing what's going on with the other departments and helping to provide input. And also just working with the departments. One good example is with elections, where we have a potential legislative issue that the Department of Revenue was just about to push forward for the longer session, and it was an issue that probably exists maybe only in Lane County after talking to other clerks and talking to the Department of Revenue and their assessors, and just having open communication between the departments, and we potentially could offset a legislative concept coming to the legislature by just communication between departments, and I think it's a good thing to have. Lane Council of Governments, I'm part of the cooperative project agreement, or CPA, for looking at LCOG as far as the future of LCOG and what's happening with that. We received correspondence yesterday that's moving forward, which is really exciting. It's kind of been on hold for about 6 months or so. Oregon State Association of County Assessors, Osaka, very active with Osaka. I'm currently president-elect. I'll be president as of the summertime for Osaka, and then also on the legislative committee, and I've testified for Osaka in front of the legislature. Oregon Society of Tax Collectors, also a similar organization to Osaka. It's the tax collector side, where the Osaka is the assessor side. AOC, I have been attending AOC meetings, and that's greatly beneficial as far as, again, seeing the other side with the commissioner side and the administrator side versus just the assessor side. District 1, other Oregon counties, we're always, Lane County, as you know, is very active with Eastern Oregon counties, Southern Oregon counties. We're looked at as in many areas as a place to go to answer questions as far as either with the software systems or with general questions. So we have a great deal of subject matter experts in our department, and if we don't know, we know who we refer them to. Other taxing districts. Taxing districts, we have to be partners with them because we get their budgets. We work with them hand in hand as far as with reports, with what-if scenarios, just with all different areas regarding correctly assessing, collecting, and distributing the funds for the districts. And then businesses, citizens, taxpayers, it's always important as far as to have open relationship where my door is open to taxpayers, to businesses, to organizations, to anyone. If they want to set an appointment and they're civil, and more happy to talk to them. But
We don't have to sit out in the hallway.
they don't have to sit in the hallway. And a lot of times while our hours are limited as far as for our public service area, I'll walk out and try to help people that are waiting as far as in our customer service area. That does a lot of good, positive goodwill for Lane County by doing that. Administration Division, again, myself and Krista, 2 FTE. That encompasses the planning, direction, operational oversight, budget, just interdepartmental relationships, goals, strategic plan, coordination of pretty much every action, support, personnel, working with our PIO and working with our website. It's a small division, but it's obviously a pretty important division to keep the glue for the department going forward. Also includes training plans. Again, small division, but that's important for the whole department. Let's see here. So for administration, this is kind of, I have a whole bunch of notes here on my sheet here, but administration, since we kind of overlap with another two divisions, I'll read our key points, which might overlap, but I won't read them for property tax and for appraisal. 2017 certified tax roll contained approximately 186,000 tax statements, real market value of $57.6 billion, a taxable value of $32.8 billion. That's B as in billions. That's a lot of money to certify each year at 100% of real market value. The certified tax roll was $15.5 million, which was certified on October 4th. I believe that's about a 4% increase in prior years. We're always very efficient in use of our resources and continually look at ways to be more productive, increase quality, and work output. Let's see here, I'll skip through a couple areas here. Let's see. So, a couple major accomplishments for this prior year. Our office was, our assessor was recognized by Thomson Reuters as a 2017 Public Champion. The Public Champion Award recognizes the individual and jurisdictions that serve the communities with excellence, leadership, and accountability. It's a cool award. If you look in our office, it's out front. It's kind of like a long, elongated glass award. So I'm pretty proud that that award was received by our department.
You should have had that sitting right there.
Yes. Instead of the Pepsi or the Dr. Pepper. Let's see. Moving on to property tax management. Property tax management is a 26 FTE, and they do a lot as far as all the different areas, and it's very the variety of what's done is amazing. Ownership changes, cartography, GIS, collections, special assessments, annexations, boundary changes, public information, personal property, handling bankruptcies, refunds, distributions, foreclosure, appeals, and exemptions. And it's really amazing. For example, boundary changes, and that's say merges. There are 1,500 boundary changes, which include subdivisions, include partition plats, include boundary line agreements, boundary line adjustments. 1,500 accounts that had to be processed this prior year and hand touched and worked by our department for the staff. That's really amazing when you think about it. And that's not including, in a little bit, I'll talk a little bit about Oregon Department of Forestry. As the board knows, spent resources for the last couple of years redoing their forest classification for property owners, and the work that trickled down to assessment taxation really is amazing. Is doing some research the last couple of days, how many hours in FTE that we're actually spending to just do the work that the Oregon Department of Forestry, which is just two of our tax districts, east and west, that's put a load on our department for the work that they did this prior year for redoing their forest land reclassification. But I'll go into that in a second here. Public information, 20,000 contacts on the telephone or counter, and counter. So on the phone and counter added together, 20,000 contacts during the year. That's a lot of contacts. That's not including internet site contacts, hits, and things like that. Refunds, double payments. It's amazing how many people want to pay us twice. I don't know why, we do sometimes. Let's see. Property tax management, it's not without its challenges. We're actually, our staff turnover, because we ask a lot for our staff members. Really for our senior OAs, we ask a lot of what they do. It's not a typical senior OA position. It's a really specialist position that works and is trained. And for example, a name change, they have to know how to read meets and bounds. They have to know basic topography mapping skills as far as how to work legal documents and deeds. It's just quite a bit that we put our staff through for our senior OAs to go through, and we actually bring them through a program that walks them through all areas of PTM before they're led on their own to a specialty area. So we do have some quite some great specialists in our department, and that does put a workload on our staff as far as, so we do have turnover in senior OAs. We also have to compete obviously with local employers and other county departments and other governmental departments, because sometimes the wages are a little difficult to compete with sometimes for our staff. The turnover is an issue for senior OAs. Same for our GIS side for cartographers, because it's a very much in-demand position right now.
Mike, what is OA?
Oh, office assistant, I'm sorry.
Office assistant.
Let's see. Some of the key accomplishments for property tax management, again, without duplicating some of the information I've already talked about. 88% of the certified total, which we certified that $515.8 million was collected by November of 2017 and distributed to the taxing districts. That's a lot of money collected and distributed. Ownership changes, 18,000 ownership changes resulting from deeds and manufactured structure title transfers this prior year. Again, 15,000 tax accounts that were touched with from plats, divisions, lot line adjustments, subdivisions. We are always trying to make things more automated. We're working with TS Technology Services to work on a system we call SMERGE, is to track and boundary lines and changes to help the workflow and process and increase just the process improvement for our department working those accounts. And then we have started with, again, the extra resources that were given in prior year to our department. We've started a long-needed audit of exemptions, and please don't be surprised if the commissioners receive comments, concerns from exemptions companies that are being audited, because we're looking at our files that are thin, that may not have very much inside the file, and so we are being fair and going through our files and just starting with a certain area. And maybe Danny, how did we choose which areas to look at first?
Because we had a newer staff member working on it, we started off with something simpler like the fraternities, and she completed that, and now she is going into the charitable.
Charitable are always an interesting area to work with. That can result with litigation and other aspects as far as, but we're always as fair as possible following Oregon statute and law. We're also working with TS to improve A&T's website functionality and searches features. We're always trying to make the website one of the best websites out there for assessment taxation statewide, and always open for feedback for improvement from anyone as far as any taxpayers or budget members, community members. Appraisal Division. Appraisal, we have currently 21 FTE, or 21 FTE with the included proposed 1 FTE add. Appraisal, again, encompasses like PTM, many different areas, including real property valuation, personal property valuation and audits, site inspections, appeals from BOPTA. I think we had 400 BOPTA appeals this prior year. Sarah?
Yeah, I think 418.
I'm putting everyone in the spot.
I
It's
know.
one random question for each staff member. They don't know what I'm going to ask them. So the Department of Revenue, which includes back year appeals or an Oregon Tax Court. We do have a new Oregon Tax Court judge, so we should be interested to see some of the decisions that come through. I know there's some long-standing court cases such as Comcast and other areas that are out there, so it should be interesting to see the new tax court judge, which direction or how the decisions go for some of the tax court decisions.
Is that an appointment?
It is, I believe it was an appointment, but it's an elected position, but I think it was appointed, if I remember correctly. Appointed by the governor, I believe. Measure 50 calculations, again, measure 47 and 50 has a constraint on our tax system that adds complex calculations to calculate the assessed value for property. We're also responsible for valuing and keeping track of the machinery and equipment for smaller industrial accounts. Of course, boundary line changes may be worked by property tax management. We have to, on the appraisal side, value those changes. We yearly have our ratio report to complete with the Oregon Department of Revenue. They have new ratio report staff and standards and guidelines we're trying to comply with. It's been difficult the last year and a half or so. I'm a fairly seasoned veteran doing the ratio report, but it has been a challenge the last couple of years working with the Department of Revenue with the ratio study guidelines. It's kind of like working with someone reading a cookbook and going from A to Z and looking for every single piece when you've cooked you cooked something for years and years and you know how to do it. You don't be flipping around and doing the work and stuff. And the Department of Revenue wants every single little piece documented, which is okay, but sometimes the documentation may be 10 years old and we may move past certain functions or features, so it's been a challenge. Taxpayer assistance, new construction, again, reappraisal. We've been focusing mainly on the Springfield area. We're also working on completing reappraisal of our apartment complexes. We reappraised manufactured structure parks the prior year. Again, with the help and result of the added staff, we greatly appreciated. And then just maintaining accurate inventory. There's a lot of areas rely on inventory. You may see Zello and other areas out there and other RMLS. A lot of the information is pulled directly from our inventory and property tax records. So the Appraisal Division, again, without being duplicate, let's see, again, reappraisal efforts. We've been implementing, updating commercial valuation tables yearly, which helps out the appraisers greatly. They don't have to actually do a separate, essentially, an appraisal for every commercial property. They use modeled tables, and just like mass appraisal for residential, moving that into the commercial side. So that's helped out greatly.
All right, you have about 5 minutes.
Let's see. I'll skip to some of the highlights, which won't hit the ones that I've already touched on. Hit almost 8,000 property inspections. That's most of those are knocking on doors and looking at the properties and talking to taxpayers. Again, the real market value, 100% real market value. Property taxes certified up 4% for prior years. About 195,000 payments were processed. That includes the trimester payments. That's a lot of payments being processed. And just as a side note, before I forget, we're transitioning to a new payment system online. We'll still use our lockbox service with U.S. Bank in Portland, but for payments on our website, we're moving forward where it enhances it in 3 different ways. One way, it adds a shopping cart system where people can add multiple accounts. It verifies account numbers, and so that way someone doesn't type the wrong account number in the system. yeah, which could result in an NSF charge or other charges, which are not easy to work with. And then it also gives the option for e-statements, or in the future, taxpayers can, instead of getting mailed a statement, they actually get it just like you do with the utility bill. And that work always behind the curve a little bit, but I want to move forward with that, so it saves not only resources, but it saves the county money for that, for our postage. Again, some future challenges, opportunities, adding the 1 FTE. Again, I appreciate strongly the commissioners and the county administration and the budget committee's support of assessment taxation. Our budget information is, again, it's not quite final with the capital grant review, audit, still going through that. And the grant funds, it'd be nice to say 1 year, come here and say the capital grant's going up instead of it staying the same or going down, but we'll see. Again, the one-time investments are great investments for the department and for the county, not only for retaining information that's historically very important, but also providing information to taxpayers online where they typically would have to submit a research request for those that information. Strategic plan. Assessment taxation has a 5-year strategic plan coinciding with Lane County's strategic plan, and we probably still need to make some tweaks to the modifications that the board recently made to the new plan. However, our plan has main support for our strategic plan is without assessment taxation, the resources would not be there to complete the strategic plan for the county, because for the infrastructure, for all areas of private community, having a health and safety county, a robust infrastructure, everything really relies on having those funds come in to serve not only Lane County, but the 83 to 289 levies that are out there.
You are the gravy train.
Yes. Questions? I apologize for going over a few minutes.
I have a quick one, Mike. So I was looking at the expenditures in between divisions, and administration went up about 50%.
That, I believe, without looking at the numbers, we have the capital funds for, actually capital funds would not be showing us either, is that the $350,000 or is that the $186,000 for the scanning project? I believe that a large increase is because of the one-time expenditures. Let me double check that here for you. So, administration. Oh. I'm quite sure the variance increase is we put the scanning project in administration. So that would be the scanning project at around that amount difference. So we're keeping the costs fairly stable with the exception of normal wage increases. But the administration jump is just dumping that one-time expenditure into administration. That's a good catch there.
Go ahead, Deb.
I just want to say I'm super stoked about the online stuff. You know, we talked about that like a year ago, and it's awesome what you guys are doing.
Well, just to expand just for a second on that, it's great because the taxpayers, instead of paying $3, they pay $1.50 for doing e-checks. It costs the county no direct cost to change the system besides just the work that we are doing to change it. And so not only it saves the taxpayers money and it saves the county money, but it makes a more effective, efficient system that we can move forward with for the future. So,
Okay, other questions?
We can continue over dinner if you want. This is good stuff.
What's the uncollectible percentage, and how has it changed over the last couple of years?
I'll have to defer to Danny for that.
I don't think that, so if you're talking about the uncollectibles that we come to the board with, usually once a year, there are businesses that have closed and we can't contact anybody anymore, and they're usually more than 10 years old. Those vary over the years, but as far as the percentage that we collect every year, and then the older years that we collect, it really just hasn't changed much at all.
So what percent is it?
Well, on the current year, we usually collect somewhere around 90%, if not more, of the current year taxes, and then it just trickles down. So we'll collect, this year, we'll also collect maybe another percent of last year's.
Right.
So we've still got either everything sitting out there as due, or we come to the board with the rest and ask for that to be written off.
Okay. How can I get my property taxes written off?
Real property won't have to.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Anybody else?
Get in line behind eliminating the renewal.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mike.
Well, you guys got a big crew.
We do.
I feel like this is deja vu.
All over again.
Get some coffee.
Got 2 chairs there.
Okay,
Oh, well, just a
I think right over here. There's 2 chairs right there.
Yeah, they shoved me down a little bit further. I think that's
I wasn't going to say anything.
private health as opposed to
Public health, indeed. So Lenise, for you to say, okay, actually people can probably come right up here. I'll just come closer to Commissioner's door and make sure. No, it's because people are going to stand.
No chance.
All right,
Okay.
our
Welcome.
team is here.
Welcome again, all of you. I'd still like to go through and introduce everybody. And do you want questions as you're speaking or after?
I think it makes the most sense to do questions at the end, just to make sure we can get through all of the slides, if that works for you. But we are all here for the duration, so we will stay as long as you would like us. Okay, so we'll start with introductions. Does that work? I'm Karen Gaffney, Director of Health and Human Services.
Lenise Kohlberg, Manager Administration.
I'm Andrea Muscan, Assistant Director. Lisa Willis, Manager of Clinical Financial Services.
Ron Chow, Manager of the Community Health Centers.
Carla Casanova, Manager of Developmental Disability Services.
Steve Manella, Human Services Manager.
Jocelyn Warren, Public Health Manager.
Lisa Nicholas, Quality and Compliance Manager.
Lisa Roth, Manager of TDH.
Kathleen Frenner, Youth Services Manager.
Carla Ayers, Manager of Onetime Behavioral Health.
All right, so that is our team, and it's nice to be back with you again today. Our plan, because we have so many divisions who are represented today, is when we get to the division-specific slides, we'll kind of run through the lineup and have people come up here and talk about their piece, and then obviously be available for questions at the end. Does that work, Mr. Chair?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Questions for all and names of everything?
I think questions, if that works for you, that'll make sure we get through the slides, and I'm certainly gonna move pretty quickly through the general department slides, and then each of the managers will do their piece, and with intention, we're leaving a big chunk of time for discussion.
Because I only have 2 things to say.
Yeah. Or did you reset your clock today for two new things? All right, with that note, let's go ahead and get started. So today we're here to talk about the divisions in Health and Human Services that are outside of the public safety category, although as we talked yesterday, in Health and Human Services, it's all connected. This is the org chart we looked at yesterday, and Behavioral Health and Youth Services are not highlighted today, although Nathleen and Carla are here, certainly if there are questions that come up about those divisions. In terms of our current year budget changes, we talked about this yesterday, and Lisa's here today to talk more about our new Division of Quality and Compliance. And yesterday I talked about the FTE we have added since last year. In addition to the 10 at behavioral health, we've added 8.5 in developmental disabilities, almost 5 in the community health centers, and 6 in Human Services Division and 4 in Public Health, and those have been added during the supplemental budget processes since last year. Again, we have 6 funds that are in Health and Human Services, and those are all listed there on the left-hand side. All of them are special revenue funds, and we'll get to that, I think, in one of the other slides more specifically. In terms of our resources and revenue, a little more than $10 million of general fund goes into Health and Human Services. Today, the divisions we'll hear from that include some of that general fund are the Human Services Division, our administration unit where our strategic development person lives, and Public Health all receive a portion of that $10 million of general fund. And again, the bulk of our revenue is in state and federal charges and grants. We looked at this yesterday. Again, most of our budget is in personnel services, followed closely by M&S, where we have a lot of subcontracts in the community, and I know we'll talk about that both in terms of partnerships and some of the work in each of the divisions, so I won't linger there. And then finally, partnerships. Some of this list is the same as what we talked about yesterday. Our state and federal governmental partners are clearly important to us across the department. New ones on this list, Poverty and Homelessness Board. Steve will talk a little bit more when we get to the Human Services Division, but that's one of the fantastic places where we feed our partnerships in that particular area. And our relationship with Trillium as our coordinated care organization has been a long-standing relationship, and Lisa Roth will talk a little bit more about that in terms of Trillium Behavioral Health and the work that we do there. I said I would be fast. Let's talk about our divisions.
So administration includes the services that are listed on there, and the 2 that I want to call out are the planning and subcontracting and the public information. Health and Human Services has an extensive subcontracted delivery system. We have over $31 million, or 25% of our budget is contracted out. As of 2018, we have 927 contracts that are active. Of those, we have 96 revenue, 557 expenses, which includes the purchase of professional services and pass-through funding to our nonprofit agencies, and then the balance are non-financial. The group is, this includes monitoring and compliance of the funder requirements, and then the tracking and the reporting of outcomes. And then for our communication plan, one of the items on the plan is the Health Matters radio show, which in 2017, 42 episodes were recorded. Each episode has an audience of 3,000 listeners. So we're reaching out into the community. And then internal communications has been focused on education and the awareness of available services within our department for our employees. So they know what we do, and they can refer other clients.
Okay, clinical financial.
So Clinical Financial Services provides administrative and financial support to the Wayne County Federal Qualified Health Center and components of youth services. As you know, the FQHC includes the community health centers, Wayne County Behavioral Health, the methadone treatment program, and public health. Our services include patient and insurance billing, provider credentialing, support and configuration of the practice management system, grant, state, and federal reporting, and some financial analysis. CFS is funded through service charges billed back to the FQHC based on collections. So as you can see in the graph, claim volumes continue to rise based on the efforts of the divisions within the FQHC, resulting in over 82,000 billed encounters in the current fiscal year. In order to keep up with the growth of revenue-generating staff and services, Clinical Financial Services is looking to leverage existing technologies to improve our efficiency and help us keep up with the current volumes.
I'm Ron John with the Community Health Centers. I won't go through the individual services that we provide. I think you're, for the most part, familiar with those. I do want to call out yesterday's comments by Carla Ayers in terms of the integration that we're doing, and we have a primary care service embedded within the behavioral health building over at Lane County Behavioral Health, and we're just doing more and more to integrate our services, not just within behavioral health, but across the realm of health and human services, and those collaborations with folks like WIC and public health and joint initiatives. Last year, we did 76,000 visits just in the community health center part of the federally qualified health center to 29,000 individuals. And a large component of our preventive dental services, just to call out the great work that our dental team does out in the community schools with the WIC and the Head Start and the grade school kids. We did 18,000 visits with dental services to 11,000 Lane County children last year. We continue to grow and expand our provider network. This past year, we were able to recruit 4 additional primary care providers, all new into our community, and 3 additional behavioral health providers, integrated behavioral health providers in our community. Kind of highlights of activities. Key thing for us starting July 1st is transitioning the model of payment that we will receive for Medicaid services. Today, we're paid on what I'd call a widget basis. A provider sees a patient, does an exam, we get paid for that exam. Starting July 1st, with the state of Oregon, we are going to be paid on a capitation basis, a per member per month service a payment. And that opens up a lot of opportunities for us to do a better job in providing services to the members we serve. So many of the individuals we serve, just a little piece of their health is related to what happens in the exam room. A large component of improving their health is what happens outside of the exam room, social determinants of health. And what this changed payment model will allow us to do is to change the way we are delivering services, and more importantly, be compensated for those other services, for patient care coordinators, for arranging transportation, for thinking about more aggressive outreach, more aggressive integration to the rest of the network into the community. And that really makes a difference in the payment and the health that we provide. We are just finishing up a remodel of our Charnelton Clinic. Yesterday, all of the staff who we had dislocated on a temporary basis for the Charnelton Clinic moved back in, and that's been a really important component back to that model. We're very much a team-based model. It was the one clinic that we had that wasn't in that payment or in that full model. We had teams split between multiple offices, so that now we have a team-based model. We have a more efficient lab. We have a much more inviting lobby. We'll have a grand reopening on the 29th. I invite you all to come to that and see that. And then pain management. Those of you on the board have heard our accolades for our pain management opioid treatment program a week or so ago. Literally an award-winning program to address opioid reduction and that issue, and the growth of alternative medicine programs, our mindfulness and acupuncture clinic, connections with the Tamarack Pool, Wellness Pool, those integrated community activities to really help address pain management are one of the key activities we're very proud of and continue to build on.
I'm Carla Tazamal with Developmental Disabilities Services, and we're located in the lowest level here of the Public Service Building, and we offer a variety of services to individuals with developmental and intellectual disabilities. One of the primary services we offer is case management. However, we also offer services regarding facilitating the licensing of foster homes for both children and adults with disabilities. And just this past week, I had the privilege of visiting with some individuals who were residing in one of the foster homes. And the individual was really sharing how before he used to live in Fairview Training Center before it closed back in 2000, and now he lives in a foster home here in the community. And he's really enjoyed how he's been able to find employment in the community, and he's actually traveled quite a bit. And so it was really an eye-opening kind of moment of just really thinking again about how important this service is. In addition, we respond to reports of abuse and neglect of individuals with developmental and intellectual disabilities. Last year, we screened over 200 calls and investigated 49 allegations of abuse and neglect. And we determine eligibility for services as well. Individuals can be determined eligible as young as right after birth and often remain in services up through death. So it is a growing population that we serve. And we do not need any county funding, general fund, because all of the funding is through state funds. It's generated mainly through Medicaid, and it is an entitlement program. So as a result of that, we do have a growing list of individuals that we're serving, but we do not have wait lists because we do need to serve all who are determined to be eligible. In 2017, over 340 newly eligible people entered the program. The majority of the largest growth that we're seeing is in regard to children. Most of them are being served in home. 43% of the individuals that we're serving are under 18. Some of the main services we provide are doing assessments to determine what individuals are eligible for, what types of services. Many of the services relate to providing direct support for individuals. For example, we do assessments to determine what kind of individualized supports individuals will receive through PSWs, or those are workers who can come and provide one-on-one support to help individuals with their daily needs, as well as assist them to go out into the community. And while we are not the employee of record for the PSWs, we do have an active role in making sure these individuals receive services through the PSWs. For example, we review and approve all of the timesheets for the individuals. And right now we have over 1,500 PSWs providing over 1,700 individuals this service. So this is a growing service. We also connect individuals to other resources, such as assisting them to connect with vocational programs in the community. And we expect this growth to continue. There's nothing in sight right now that indicates that it's going to decline. Eligibility, the only thing that really might happen at some day would be looking at eligibility, but at this point there's nothing that indicates that eligibility rules are going to change. And so we expect this to continue to grow, and as a result, we are planning right now for an expansion of our area downstairs because we are at a capacity. We have nowhere for people to sit, literally, and so we're looking forward to adding some additional space for people to be able to sit.
Hi, I'm Steve Manella, Human Services Manager. Human Services Division is an intergovernmental partnership with the City of Eugene and City of Springfield. We have two boards. We have a Human Services Commission and we have a Poverty and Homelessness Board. The Poverty and Homelessness Board is a very exciting venture that we started a few years ago, and it's really a catalyst to a lot of the activities that we do. Our division helps people be stable, and we help lift people out of poverty. The services include everything from low-income energy assistance, our homeless and housing, supportive housing programs, the Poverty and Homelessness Board and Human Services Commission, veteran services and workforce services. Our Veteran Service Office provides the highest number of veterans claims in the state. Multnomah County has the highest veteran population, but Lane County actually gets veterans more benefits than any other county in the state. Additionally, our workforce services crew work with both people who are being provided public assistance as well as working with job seekers and industries in the community. The skill set of people is going through transition. There's a need in the community for more people to receive employment and training services so that they can get some of those better paying jobs. Some of the initiatives that our division's involved in, first, emergency shelter. We're working in partnership with the City of Eugene on a homeless systems analysis and shelter feasibility study. We have over 15,000 people a year that our service providers see that are homeless at some point during the year. And probably most of you know, and Pat reminds you from time to time, that there's a housing crisis in Lane County. And we're very pleased that we're able to work in partnership with Homes for Good, St. Vincent de Paul, with the City of Eugene and the healthcare community and others in addressing those housing needs.
This fall, we'll have the outcome of that analysis. We have, on a nightly basis, we have over 700 people who are without shelter and around 1,600 total homeless people. So while we serve over 58,000 people a year through the partnerships with nonprofit and public agencies, we have a large number of people who are living at 50% of the poverty line, half of the poverty line, and so they're very low income. We have a lot of people with disabilities, and that leads me into the Frequent User System Engagement, the FUSE project. The FUSE project is a partnership between Human Services, the healthcare sector, and public safety. Basically what we're looking at is we have 100 people who are the most frequent users of all of those systems. They're the people that are most costly both to the public safety system and to the healthcare system. And during our first year of the FUSE pilot, we were able to decrease arrests by EPD significantly by over 80%. And we were able to decrease costs to Medicaid through Trillium by about 56%. And that's through a combination of providing outreach and supportive housing. Supportive housing we do through a combination of resources. We receive over $3.5 million a year from the Department of Housing and Urban Development under the Continuum of Care program to serve homeless people with permanent supportive housing. Permanent supportive housing is a type of housing that provides a permanent place for people to live. The idea is housing first, get people into housing and then provide services for them. So this can be done on a facility-based basis through something like the MLK project that we're proposing, a 50-unit facility base. It can be done through affordable housing projects where what we do is we partner with folks like St. Vincent de Paul and Homes for Good, and they dedicate a block of units of those apartment buildings to be service enriched for residents to live. And the third way that it's provided is scattered site through participation with private landlords in the private sector, where private landlords will work with us and work with Homes for Good, and we'll be able to get folks with disabilities who've been long-term homeless into housing, and then we'll be able to provide the services, outreach to them where they live, and provide the support that they need to stay stable in housing. It's an evidence-based practice. We find nationally that 80-85% of the folks who go into permanent supportive housing stay housed and don't become homeless again. And I just want to take this time to applaud our county administrator for recognizing this practice and putting some resources in the budget for this next year. So thank you.
I'm Jocelyn Warren with Public Health. Public health assures the conditions in which people can be healthy, and we do that through the three core functions of public health, which are assessment, policy development intervention, as well as assurance. Assessment includes monitoring community health data, tracking diseases, communicating with the public about health threats, and as technology evolves, we have an opportunity to do more social epidemiology, so tracking the social determinants of health and being able to do mapping at the neighborhood level to determine risk factors, which we plan to do more of in the future. And that can include things like such as access to transportation or healthy food options, for example. For policy and other interventions to improve health, we use data and science to determine the most robust approaches, such as Nurse-Family Partnership and WIC. Both of these programs have been demonstrated to have both immediate and long-term effects on child growth and development. We also focus heavily on policy development because the impact at the population level is so great, such as tobacco use, and we look forward to doing more work in other areas with the Board of Health in the future. In terms of assurance, environmental health assures that food safety through inspections and training and responds to a wide range of concerns from our community. We also provide specialized services that are otherwise hard to find in our community, such as TB treatment and screening, as well as testing and treatment of sexually transmitted diseases. A few things to highlight are, the first is accreditation. May 16th, we will have, it's coming.
Push the button.
Well, it's coming, and then it's going to be a long time coming, because all of our documents are due on May 16th, and we're tying everything up in pretty bows. And then we'll probably have a site visit around maybe 9 months later. They're a little out because Ohio has required all of their health departments to be accredited, and they have like 130 or something like that. So it's pushed back a little bit, but so we'll know in a year what our efforts have come to. It's a little awkward because it's supposed to be representing the things that you do, but in a year from now we're going to be doing different things. So we'll see how that works.
Is that what you're saying?
I'm sorry?
Ohio, already alphabetical.
Ohio, what's up with that? Well, I mean, what we have here, we don't have this mandate to be accredited, but we do have public health modernization, which is accreditation on steroids. So we're doing much better than Ohio. That is, and we're working on that now. We got the first round of funding from the legislature. It was $5 million, $3.9 million of which went out to local jurisdictions to improve CD capacity. We chose locally to focus on vaccinations, and we're braiding that with some of the other funding we got through Kresge to do more collaboration with the community health centers. So we're looking at both vaccination as well as tobacco cessation to see what we can do more collaboratively to improve those areas. We're also updating the community health needs assessment. You may have heard, and we'll be reporting more about this, but we're due again to do our community health needs assessment, which seems like, didn't we just do that? And it does feel like we just did it. That was such a huge process, and we involved over 200 organizations, or 200 people. No, 2,000 people, 2,200 people, 200 organizations. I mean, it was enormous, 50 focus groups. So this time we're going to do another assessment, but it's going to be really kind of diving deeper into some specific issues to provide more information around our specific initiatives so we can do more targeted work for the Community Health Improvement Plan. So that will be exciting. The last thing I want to highlight, and I know you'd love to hear about this, is HIV and sexually transmitted diseases. This, I think, should be what come after vaccinations and tobacco cessation as something that we really collaborate with our clinical partners to address. It's really getting out of control. I mean, these is the graph of our gonorrhea rate continues to increase, and we know that these things travel together. So as gonorrhea increases, so does HIV. We've already talked about the high rates of syphilis in our community. So we'll be doing more on that soon. We're developing a new STD strategic plan, so we'll report on that as those things evolve. That should be ready by the fall. Thank you.
Good afternoon. So as Karen has talked about, quality and compliance is the newest division for Health and Human Services. In fact, just 2 weeks ago, we celebrated our 6-month anniversary. So that is very exciting. This division was created to support our entire department in the growing areas of quality improvement, data and analytics, electronic health record support, and compliance and risk management. Our team is composed of the EHR data team that was before under clinical financial services, as well as our senior management analyst that was under admin, as well as the reclassified second assistant director position that was also under admin. The creation of this division is extremely timely. It coincides with an increased focus that we're seeing amongst many of our funders and regulators, particularly in the areas of quality improvement and risk management. Nationally, there's really this realization that these activities really drive efficient and effective services, and we all have extremely limited resources, so there is a growing need to focus on these areas. So over the last 6 months, we've realized a number of important wins, and I'd like to highlight a couple of those. So to start with, we have been working and collaborating with Lane County Behavioral Health on the recent adolescent suicide cluster that our community has realized. And this graph, I'm not going to talk a lot about it, but I just wanted to show it as a snapshot of some of the work that we've been providing to our divisions, really helping them pull data around important initiatives such as this one, analyze it, and then work with them to improve their operations so we can be addressing their populations and making positive strides in these very important areas. Other activities we've been involved with, we've been collaborating with the Sheriff's Office and LCBH again on the work that they do, providing mental health services in the jail. So getting that data and making sure that what we're doing is effective and that we are in fact reducing the number of individuals with mental illness in our jail. I've also been working with public health on bringing quality improvement training for our entire department. So that helps Jocelyn and her team with their accreditation work, but also brings that culture of continuous quality improvement to our entire department. Really wanting everyone to strive to constantly be looking to how we can improve our services and thus improve what we're offering to the community. We've also been working with a few divisions on compliance and risk management activities. So we've conducted thorough risk assessments with both LCBH and Ron Shop at the community health centers. And then following those identification of our high-risk areas, working with them on mitigating against those risks and making sure that we're striding forward in the right way. So when we launched this division 6 months ago, we wanted to build it upon a strong foundation. So one of the activities that we started with was doing a very thorough stakeholder analysis. So we met with all of these wonderful individuals in this room, as well as many other staff in H&HS, and really learned from them what they need from this new division, what supports are really necessary for them to do their best work. And amongst all of those meetings, we heard a number of different themes. So trying to make sure that we have a common framework and language around quality improvement, that everyone is talking that same talk and walking that same walk, that we're supporting them in their QI initiatives and helping them improve their services, that we're conducting those risk assessments and mitigating against our risks, that we're helping them with all of the data that they have, helping them know what to pull, what to monitor, how to analyze that. And the reason that I am telling you all of this is because we do have a budgetary ask of this committee. So in our budget, we have proposed to add an additional 2 FTE. These would be management analyst positions that would serve to really move forward that quality improvement and data component, support those activities that I just spoke to, as well as another FTE dedicated towards compliance. We currently have a very small amount of resources dedicated in that area, and as you can imagine, amongst all these things that these individuals have spoke to, we fall under a number of different regulations and rules, and so we really need to be proactive in the area of compliance and risk mitigation. So that is my ask of you. Thank you.
I see that Pat is here, so I'm just going to open the door. Take a moment to breathe.
What a very good hostess you are, Lisa.
Please, come in, join our fun. So as you know, Trillium Behavioral Health is contracted with Trillium Community Health Plan to monitor and manage the Medicaid benefit for our members. We do this, you want to sit? We do this by providing utilization management, care management. We also have specialty initiatives like our older adult program, integrative care, and system of care wraparound initiative for children and families. TBH is a public-private partnership that's focused on integration of physical and mental health through the TIP program. We have now I'm looking at this so I make sure I get it right, the Clinical Integration Services Learning Collaborative that is for behavioral health, dental, and physical providers, in order that everybody comes together to have a learning about how to have integrated care at various levels of what provider readiness is. We also have our older adult initiative that provides education, advocacy, and provider community training. It now serves Lane, Coos, and Curry counties, and we're lucky enough to have reserves dedicated to Medicaid mental health members. Short and sweet.
So good afternoon. A couple more slides to go through. So I get to talk about the highlights of the fiscal year 17-18. You just heard a wealth of information, so it's difficult to actually highlight all the work that's being done in Health and Human Services, but I do want to just focus on the data and analytics, which is a part of our strategic plan. Karen talked about that being one of our pillars yesterday, and we really have made every effort to look at how to use data better in order to provide better services and ensure that we are focusing on working smarter. We're also really focused on health equity and looking at disparities and confronting health disparities in our community. And also, Ron already mentioned this, the 29,000 patients in the CHC, that is very impressive. So I just want to point that out. Next slide.
What's the pinata?
The pinata, actually, that is an individual who we serve in developmental disabilities. And we have a media release. And you can see Steve talked about the veterans, that $7.1 million in retroactive benefits for veterans and families. So future challenges and opportunities. So these go hand in hand. Challenges also come with lots of opportunities. All of these things that the division managers have talked about at some point, whether it was yesterday or today. So housing, as we know, is an absolute priority for us. We're focused on looking at all types of housing, and that is in the forefront, as well as also you've heard the challenges related to that. Quality improvement. We're looking at more resources for opiate prevention and treatment. Yesterday I mentioned that we're increasing our Suboxone program at the methadone treatment facility. We're looking for more opportunities for funding for opiate treatment. And we're also, as Carla Tazimo had mentioned, we have a greater demand for DD services. So we really also want to focus on the unmet needs of folks in the rural area of Lane County, as well as those who are receiving dental care services. And then Lane County strategic plan. So, when this slide was first put on, we had it actually overflowing, so we had to sort of pull back a little bit. So I just want to highlight a couple areas. We are clearly, Health and Human Services, clearly in alignment with the Lane County strategic plan. And a couple of areas I'd like to just point out is, again, identifying and implementing programs for supported housing and short-term transitional housing and long-term and permanent solutions to address homelessness, behavioral and community health, the access to primary care and behavioral health under that safe and healthy county area, and then vibrant communities, our workforce development, the safe drinking water program that happens in environmental health, and then again, I'm going to emphasize all of the equity work that is happening with all of the community partners and committees that we work with. Under robust infrastructure, really that public health participation in the traffic safety team to reduce fatalities, and then again our new facility development, the expansion of a wing of behavioral health several years down the way. And then our people and partnerships, we are focused on employment engagement and really focused on the trauma-informed practices throughout all of our divisions, as well as our enhanced partnerships with nonprofits and other state and local governments. And we're really focused on the data and analytics piece. So, any questions for us?
H&HS in a nutshell.
Commissioner?
You're going to go, I'll go second.
I've got a lot of them.
Oh, great.
Actually, first one is for you. You didn't say anything about the HRSA evaluation. You made a presentation to the Board of Commissioners, but can you tell the Budget Committee about, there were 91 areas, right?
Sure, I'd be happy to do so. We are regulated by the Health Resources and Service Administration. Our friends in Washington regulate federally qualified health centers. They do a semi-annual, every 2-year audit of FQHCs. They come in and do a very extensive review of clinical, operational, financial, governance areas are the key 4 areas. It takes 3 reviewers and a project officer, 3.5 days of review. And I'm delighted to report to all of you that of the 92 areas, we fully passed on 91 of the 92. And the deficiency is one that the finance reviewer said he's never had a review without a deficiency in this area. As I said to the council, Nursing 101, if it isn't documented, it isn't done. We have a referral relationship, a couple referral relationships with community partners where they actually do provide sliding discounts to our members. We don't have those documented in MOUs or contracts, and so we had a deficiency. Even though that is the practice, we didn't have them down in writing, so we're fixing some of those. So thank you.
So one by one, can you do the other 91?
We don't have the time, but in deference, on the side, we'll have coffee.
And I wanted the Budget Committee to hear that, because it is pretty amazing news, what's happening with our FQHCs, as well as 29,000 individuals, different people receiving primary care through our FQHCs. Pretty amazing what happens inside those 6 facilities. So thank you for that. And my second is for Steve Manelli, and I'll put you on the spot a little bit.
Okay.
You said something at the start of your presentation that Human Services is an intergovernmental partnership with the State of Eugene and the City of Springfield.
Yes.
And no other department said anything such as that. So could you take about one sentence to say what that means?
And Steve, why don't you come up here, because I know the mic doesn't pick up as well from the back.
Yeah, the intergovernmental partnership has been a financial partnership where the City of Eugene and the City of Springfield actually put in general fund dollars, and as a part of that with the Human Services Commission, they actually help with priorities and policy related to human services. The other area is the Poverty and Homelessness Board, where we have the mayor of Eugene and we have the mayor of Veneta and Commissioner Farr, as well as many other community members. But in that case, again, we have a strategic plan where we're working on things like 600 units of supportive housing, and we have intergovernmental cooperation between each of the parties. It's the kind of thing where people pool their resources, and it's really a collaborative effort.
Which leads to my second question for you.
Okay.
And, regarding a specific collaboration with the City of Eugene, for instance. As we're going through our budget process, the City of Eugene is also, and the City of Springfield are going through their budget processes, talking about Human Service Commission and Human Service Commission Poverty and Home Support actions and the projects that we get involved in. One, for instance, that is really of particular importance to me is the overnight camping program. Which takes place from November 1st to March 31st. Last year we put about $23,000 in
Dusk to dawn.
I said,
Not camping.
Dusk to dawn, excuse me. Overnight camping is something different. And the City of Eugene put in last year, someplace around a little over 100,000, I believe, is what the City of Eugene came in on that. This year, I'm going to put in a request at some point during the budget process for $38,000 to go into Dusk to Dawn, which is a little bit of an increase from last year. What Dusk to Dawn does is allows, we house overnight 80 individuals last year over those 150 or so days for our $23,000. And other work goes into it. But this year, I'm going to put in a request for $38,000. You'll see this later on in the process. What that will do is allow us to bump up to 95 beds throughout that same period of time. And also help us to help St. Vincent de Paul fund a housing navigator to help people move through the emergency system, because that's what we want. We don't want people to stay in emergency beds and wait until next year so they can get emergency beds again. We want people to move through. So a part of that funding would be moving people through the system.
So the housing is provided in surplus military tents. These tents happen to be manufactured in Lane County by Western Shelter Systems. So they're heated with propane heaters, and they're insulated for the weather. And that allows us to put up an emergency shelter. And as Pat mentioned, we're looking at going from 80 to 95 beds. Last year there were 80 beds, and the last month of the project, the City of Eugene City Council stood up some additional money for an additional 10 beds, and so there were 90 beds for the remaining 30 days of the program. But the City of Eugene provided last year 162,505. And this year, the ask of the City of Eugene is a little over 200,000. We look at the residency during the last 12 months of people who were served in our homeless system, and currently about 70% of the homeless population has resided in Eugene before becoming homeless, and so the other 30% are in the other cities or in the balance of the county. And so that's sort of how we've come up with the cost-sharing arrangement. And as Pat said, last year was a little over 23,000. This year would be 38,000.
Thanks for that, Steve. So you'll see that a little bit later on. And really, as we said here, the City of Eugene their budget committee is being asked for 38,000 more than they budgeted last year. And so my request is for 38,000 this year, which is essentially what the City of Eugene's increase will be in the same program. Thank you. That's my two. I'm done. If I raise my hand again, ignore me.
Where are those beds located?
It's located out on Highway 99. St. Vincent de Paul owns a property which is across the street from their Lindholm Center.
Okay.
It borders the railroad.
Right. Okay. Other questions?
It's not where you'd want to stay, but compared to underneath the bush, it's
well, it's nice to know I have a back.
Down by the Ritz-Carlton.
Larry?
So, mine's about budgets, right?
Excellent. We're here to talk about budgets.
I think I actually figured out my first question.
Okay.
Admin is way down, but that's because you trimmed it.
Correct.
Quality. Good calls.
Quality and compliance. Yes, we moved a couple positions
And
there.
those asks that you have, are they in the current budget?
They are in the proposed budget, and the way the expenses in quality and compliance are allocated is across the department. So the expense for those positions is kind of an internal indirect across all of the other divisions. So the general fund ask is a relatively small portion of the total costs that will be picked up.
Then, here. Ron, well, this is not a budget question. Well, in a way. So the change from Medicare billing to per member, do you have any idea what's that going to do to your revenue? What percentage will it increase?
Well, the calculation with the state, quite frankly, is that it is revenue neutral. The state uses about 18 months worth of data and looks retroactively based upon historically what we would have received, and then calculates that per member per month calculation going forward to be revenue neutral. A little over half of the FQHCs in Oregon have now changed to that payment model. The first was 6 years ago, so we're in actually the sixth cycle. I will say that all but one have had a net a benefit financially, and that's for a couple of reasons. One is quite frankly just a transitional change. It's a cash flow benefit. So instead of waiting 3, 6, 9 months for that payment, you're getting that infusion, if you will, right away that you would have waited multiple months for. But the more important is as you change the payment model, The reality is, historically, a lot of the providers, we're paid for what the physicians and the nurse practitioners do. We're not paid for what number of the services that we're currently providing for patient care coordinators and nurses and other staff that are providing service, but we're not being compensated for. And the more that you look to, and that's why the team model is so important, the more you look to have those other team members work to the top of their license and supplant the good work that the providers are doing, in essence, what happens is those provider visits that maybe historically needed to be 30 minutes or 20 minutes, now the providers can get in and they can do a handoff to a behavioral health provider or a patient care coordinator or to a nurse. The patient might spend 30 minutes, they might spend 40, 50 minutes with the team, but instead of spending 30 minutes with the provider, they're spending less time. So the reality is you're actually able to see more members, and that has had the net impact on our peers who've gone before us of actually increasing the revenue.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And by the way, revenue is not the objective. Better patient care is the objective.
It's just a nice byproduct.
It is. No, it really is, and that is something that we're working a lot on our teams on in terms of being able to document these other services that historically we haven't documented, so that we can demonstrate the value we provide in really taking care of the social determinants of health.
Thanks.
A question about STDs. If I understand it right,
We're against them.
if I understood the graph right, we're higher than comparative locations. Is that right?
Well, we're higher than the state in many areas, and it's pretty sporadic across the country, but there are other areas in North America, ranging from Seattle to Calgary, Canada, that have really high rates as well. So we're not alone in some regards.
But we're high within the state.
Pat,
We
you want
are.
to come on up to the
Yes.
table so that...
I'm sure it's a bunch of factors, but just what's the driving force of that, or a couple of the driving forces?
Well, I think probably the biggest driving force, if you look sort of longitudinally, is the fact that many people have lost their sense that some diseases like HIV are a death sentence. They're now just a chronic illness like any other disease, and you can live a normal lifespan, you have to take a pill. But so having safe sex has decreased significantly, and there's a lot of studies showing condom use, showing serial monogamy versus polygamy has altered in the last decade, unfortunately. That's probably the biggest. And we also are wondering a bit on the education of our community, because the provider community, because we have drug resistance in a few organisms, and people don't immediately adopt a new practice change. It takes a while to change. I used to be a Navy guy. It takes a while to turn around an aircraft carrier. Doctors are aircraft carriers. It takes a while to change practice. So we're working on improving that as well.
I guess, is there any reason you see Lane County being higher than the state average? Anything unique about us here that...
No, I don't think so. At least we don't have the data to support it. We have plenty of people asking us, is it all the university's fault? We look at our data and stratify it by age and sex and student, and we don't think it's the university. It's the number one group is 20 to 29 for most of these STDs, but really right next to it is the 30 to 39-year-olds. It's almost exactly the same. It's about 40% versus about 36%. And the 19 and under is the fourth most common group. The actual next one is 50 to 59. So the STDs, they're just coming out of the woodwork.
So I had a few public health budget. Let's see. State payback. First of all, what is that? And then it went up about 60% from last year.
It's the state payback. Do you want to come on up here? In MCH?
Oh, for the billing? So for the match? Let me see which one you're looking at.
I'm sure he's looking at the match because we bumped it up. We're changing that.
The state billing rules now for Medicaid in order to bill
for these services, for the maternity case management, you have to have a local match. So we're using general fund as the match to bring down the Medicaid funds.
And so I think that number has gone up because our services have gone up, right?
And there's been a
So we
change
have a
of
higher,
billing.
we've
Right.
shifted, all of them are following under the match, that didn't before.
So do you want to explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so there used to be, you could, the way the billing used to be done, we could bill $2 trillion, but now instead of, if we have to bill $1 trillion, we have to have an agreement in place, an MOU, and that is complicated. The other way to do it is just to bill directly to the state. So now instead of billing $1 trillion, we're billing directly to the state and doing the match and pulling down the Medicaid dollars that way. It was supposed to be a transition over a few years, and it did not go very well. It was a little rocky, and so I think there's one county in the state right now that has that, or one CCO that has an agreement with their MCH group to do the billing separately. So they bill for a much different. Their MOU encompasses more than just the nurse home visiting.
But the billing would be revenue, right?
Well, and I guess, the other piece to me, and Lenise and Jocelyn, correct me if I'm wrong, what we've seen over the last several years is an increase in our ability to provide services, home visiting services for high-risk moms and babies, which is a great thing because there continues to be demand in the community to do that. And so overall, the general fund has typically been what we have used for match. That's always been the case when we've come here to do that, and it's a matter of that leverage piece of being able, if we provide more services, we can bill for more services, and it takes more of that match to pull that down.
So
Is
the
that
revenue's higher, but that's why the expenses too.
Right.
Yeah, I think I have one more. No. Oh, Trillium, I do have one.
Trillium Behavioral Health?
Yeah.
All right.
I knew it was me.
Come on up, Lisa.
Right, I don't want to leave you out. Let's see. The big decrease in agency payments,
Yeah, that's why I'm standing next to Lenise.
it's about $5 million.
So in an effort to budget, to bring our budget and actuals closer together, we always budgeted what we thought we might spend, but we really shrunk it down and moved it into reserve. So you'll see the reserve line item increased up by, where's it at? 5.6 million maybe. Nope, 6.7 million. We put in reserve. And this is the first year our department put money in reserve across all the divisions. So we're just, and we'll watch it during the year, and if it looks like some of the projects will go through, then we'll move it from contingency up to, and then leave the reserve alone, so.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I think back to Lenise's piece around truing up, if you look at our actuals prior, they were actually significantly lower. So this year's budget, we're not going to spend all of that money in agency payments. And so in looking at next year's budget, trying to be more accurate and truing that up is why we made that change. Does that make sense?
Well, last year it was
16-17 actuals was 607,000, right? Yeah. So that's what we actually spent last year, and this year's budget is higher than what we will actually spend.
Okay.
Other question?
That's it?
I will repeat my comment from yesterday that it appears, again, today with all the presentations, you come in contact with a lot of people, a lot of people with mental issues, and I would again hope that an individual that you come in contact with that through act and deed or appearance appears to be having anger management issues, propensity to violence, and other indicators that that person, that a team of specialists somehow within the organization, you all know how to do that, identify that individual and get them some observation and services so we don't have a mass shooting.
Well, absolutely, Jerry Edgman. We were talking about that a little bit after the meeting yesterday, and I guess a couple things I would say. I think the overall community awareness has increased significantly, in particular since the Parkland shooting, but even before that. So I think our department and the larger community is certainly on alert, and so we're paying attention to that. I know Nathleen was saying that there's been an increase in response from law enforcement of erring on the side of bringing kids in where there's concern. I think in all of our programs that include mental health specialists, there certainly is an awareness for that. It's not a perfect predictive science by any stretch, but I think that's on everyone's mind.
Good. Good to hear. Okay. Any other questions? Then thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Steve? Yes. Nice job. You got a sticker too. Steve, you think you can contact Glenn and have us
Typically not, usually the board will
let's plan on a break
declare a
until 3:30.
vacancy, and that'll probably be done pretty quickly, and then typically people apply.
much improved budget with our change in financial situation. After over a decade of, I've been with Public Works for 12 years, more than a decade of constrained budgets, drawing down our reserves, and staffing reductions. We're finally at a turning point in Public Works, and that's pretty exciting, where we're able to add back services and staff and restore those services for the community. So this is very exciting. I want to thank you and the Budget Committee for your work that you do. I know it's an intensive amount of time and energy to go through all these budgets, but we do appreciate your feedback and direction and carrying that through the process to the board. I'm sure that they appreciate it as well, so thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So my name is Dan Hurley. I've been with Public Works since 2005. I started as an engineer tech at the landfill, and I've had the opportunity to work in various roles in Public Works throughout my time here. About 5 years ago, I started as the manager for the Solid Waste Division, and have really enjoyed that. And then I've had some opportunity to have some interim assignments in the last couple of years. I've been working as the interim director since the end of December, as you're aware. At that time, the county accepted the resignation of the director and assistant director. So I've been working in that capacity, and this is my second time in this role. I had the opportunity when Marcia Miller retired a couple of years ago. About this time last year, I was acting as the interim assistant director and had the opportunity to help the department develop its budget. This is my first time in this role, presenting the budget in the director role. So this is exciting for me. And while the director has some role in this, I'd like to acknowledge that the bulk of this work is carried out by our budget manager, Tanya Heaton. So I'd like to recognize and thank Tanya. She is extremely skilled at this. She's been our budget manager, finance manager for many years now, and knows this in and out. And her team of talented budget analysts, including Christine Thornhill and Suzanne Mueller, put these together, go through thousands of lines of accounts and budgets to prepare this work, and along with our division managers, which I will introduce in a little bit here. So big thanks to them. Public Works, I love Public Works. I find the work fascinating, and I'm very proud of the work. It's a diverse set of services that we provide in the community, and I believe that a well-run Public Works agency is not very conspicuous in the public eye. I think these services are just part of the daily lives of our community, part of the quality of life, and people probably take it for granted, and I'm okay with that. When there's a problem, people are aware of it, and I just assume stay under the radar. But I think people put out their trash on a weekly basis knowing that it's going to be safely disposed of. They get in their cars knowing that they're going to have safe roads to drive on. They go to our county facilities knowing that they're going to be clean and well maintained. They go to the fair without probably a clue of how much work that it takes to put on such a large event. They go to our beautiful parks without probably thinking about how they're maintained and the resources it takes to do that. And they live out their daily lives in their homes and structures, probably not knowing that they've been permitted for safety and that they can just live out their lives in their communities. So proud of all that work that we do here, and I'm excited to have our experts in the field share that work with you in a minute. I'm going to provide a broad overview for the department, and then I will introduce our division managers. They're definitely the experts in their field and are quite literally where the rubber meets the road, and they'll be excited to share their work with you. So quickly, a department overview. We have 8 divisions in Public Works, including administration, taking care of all the people and money issues that make the work, the ability of the work to happen. Our engineering and construction services division takes care of all the planning, design, and construction of our transportation systems, including surveying and materials testing. We have our general services division, which is most largely our fleet management, but it's also a hodgepodge of other responsibilities, including our facilities maintenance and our custodial services, and most recently animal services we've added to the mix there. At land management, they carry out the important responsibilities of our land use planning, our building safety programs, and on-site sanitation. The Lane Event Center, of course, puts on the fair, but also 185 average other events throughout the year for our community. Road and bridge maintenance takes care of our more than 1,400 miles of roads and 420-ish bridges that we have scattered around Lane County, and our sign and striping programs. And then Parks maintains over 50 sites, including our large regional parks such as Howard Buford Recreation Area and various boat landings and marinas. And then the Waste Management Division takes care of all our recycling and waste disposal, disposing more than 250,000 tons of waste annually at the Short Mountain landfill and through our 16 transfer stations. So a lot of incredibly diverse work out there, and I'm quite proud of that work that we do. Some highlights of our changes for this budget year, most notably House Bill 2017, the transportation package. The legislature approved that last year, and that's been a game changer for our department and for the road fund. So with that, we'll be experiencing new revenue coming in, starting with about $2.2 million this current year, and that will increase over the next 6 years, growing to about $9.7 million. In total, over those 6 years, we'll be bringing in over $40 million, and I would like to thank Commissioner Lycan for all his work supporting that effort to get that passed there. That's been huge for us. Also, in addition to the gas tax, new money, there will also be some money for a key jurisdictional transfer. We will be taking on Territorial Highway and the Cresswell Highway 222. In exchange, ODOT will take Delta Highway, which functions more of a state highway. So we're excited to make that exchange, and we'll get $30 million in 3 payments to be able to take on the responsibility and upgrade and improve that roadway. So that's a huge project in the years to come. And also more recently, some federal funding. We've had 2 additional years of Secure Rural Schools payments authorized, totaling about $9.4 million. We'll be talking about that more tomorrow. But we have our idea of where those monies should go for capital improvements, but understanding that the county has competing needs and may need to direct those elsewhere. But we have a long list of projects that need work. We have our transportation system plan with probably 20 years of projects, and would love to be moving on those with this one-time money. Our road fund reserve policy, Tanya Heaton led the effort to analyze our reserves and what level of reserves we should set those to. And in the course of that, and the board recently approved the road fund reserve policy, but as part of that, we identified that we have about $2.6 million in reserves above the threshold that we've set to be able to prepare for unexpected and catastrophic events. So we'll be able to use some of those one-time monies for our capital improvements as well. You may have heard in the media, in the paper, in the TV news about the recycling changes. Those are now affecting people all across Lane County. There have been changes even now in the Eugene-Springfield area where we're not able to take plastics, most types of plastics. This is in response to global changes in the market, most notably China, that's stopped accepting certain types of materials. So we're adjusting to that. It has a budget impact. When we started our commingled recycling, we were able to market that for no cost. We're now having to charge, we're being charged $186 a ton to move that material, so a significant impact there. And then finally, a reorganization that we wanted to highlight, moving animal services to general services. At least through this transition period, we are absent our parks manager. We have interim there, but we're down a person to be able to provide stronger management support for animal services, a small section that doesn't have close management otherwise, to give them some overhead protection from all of the complaints and things that come along in that realm. So some of our current budget year changes for FTE I'd like to call out. But last year in the adopted budget we had about 334 FTE. In response to the new state money from the transportation package, in Supplemental 1 we added 11 FTE. including a contracts position in administration to be able to consolidate our contracting effort to be more efficient there, knowing that we're going to have a lot more contracts to process through the system. We added 2 engineering techs to be able to get these projects off the ground. And then most notably in Road and Bridge, we've been able to add back a bridge crew. We dropped from 2 crews to 1 crew several years ago, and with over 400 bridges, maintaining that number of bridges with 1 bridge crew is an impossible task. So being able to add back a full bridge crew is very exciting for us to be able to prepare for seismic resiliency and just the ongoing maintenance of those bridges. I talked about the reorganization from animal services, that's that next column. And then in supplemental 2 and 3, we added an additional 6 positions. Those were, at 1.5 FTE land management, I believe that's land management tech. And what's the half?
Building safety.
Building safety, thank you. And then in parks, we are adding, the 0.5 was
Call taker for reservations.
Call taker for reservations, thank you. And then in our budget for this year, our request here is to add another 0.5 FTE in administration to be able to support our accounts payable section with increased number of transactions. Our engineering, adding an engineering analyst for more of those projects that we're seeing. In general services, we're adding a facilities planner. In parks, we're adding another parks ranger, which is very exciting for us. We're very understaffed in that area. And then finally, in Road and Bridge, a maintenance planner for all the projects that we will be doing for overlays, pavement preservations, and various road maintenance projects. So in total, we're looking at a proposal for 356 FTE, which is an increase of 21.5 over last year's budget.
At the end. First at the end.
Oh, Professor Matt, okay.
Budgeting in Public Works is complex because we have, in addition to our 8 divisions, we also have 10 funds. So the general fund we receive is approximately 4.72% of our budget. That money goes to support county facilities, property management, and animal services, the transfer to animal services. The next piece of the pie there, the yellow, that's for our fleet. The official name for that fund, I forget.
Motor and equipment pool.
Motor and equipment pool. Fleet owns the equipment, gets paid back for the rental rates so that ultimately we can replace those pieces of equipment as they come due for replacement. Our largest piece of the pie there in orange, those are our special revenue funds. We have several of those there. The largest of those is the road fund, of course. And then finally, the green piece of the pie there are enterprise funds. We have 3 enterprise funds that are intended to be self-sustaining through user fees. So those include land management, lane events center, and solid waste. Now looking at our resources, our incoming revenue, our largest share there is in fees and charges. So land management takes fees for building permits and various processes there at land management. Fleet, we talked about the rental rate that we receive for the users of fleet equipment. And then the bulk of the fees and charges come through the waste management division, the tipping fees, the garbage fees that the haulers and self-haulers pay when they come to our facilities. The next large piece of the pie there is our state revenue. That's primarily the gas tax state revenue, which will be increasing in the coming years. And then we also get reimbursements for specific construction projects that we do in conjunction with the state. So then also federal revenues would be the next piece there coming around the circle. We receive reimbursements from the federal government for emergency reimbursement and other federal projects. We have property rentals, fines, licenses and permits, taxes and assessments, interest earnings, and finally internal administrative charges between the divisions. And then just to call out the amount for the general fund transfer that goes into animal services, that's about $483,000. On the other side of the coin, our expenditures. You can see our amounts there for personnel services and material services and capital expenses. Overall, our operational expenses are up by about 2.8%, which is close to the budget guidance of 2.6 for the CPI. So I think we've kept things in check there as far as our growing expenses. And then capital expenditures, we have 0.8 budgeted for waste management. That's currently in the budget for improvements at the Glenwood Transfer Station. We may be holding on that based on some uncertainty about that location. If we're able to move money there, we will probably direct it to improvements at the Short Mountain landfill for the entrance road coming into that facility. It needs some serious work.
That's a terrible acronym.
WMD, sorry, Waste Management Division. Yeah, our retired Army colonel here was concerned about that one as well. So we have also our fleet fund capital, though that's for equipment replacement. And then road fund, we have 10.4 budgeted there for capital improvements. And our capital improvement plan, our 5-year road and bridge capital improvement plan, will be coming to the board next week, and Peggy will be talking more about that. Partnerships. We couldn't do the great work we do out in the community without some key partnerships, and we wanted to highlight some of those there. One of the biggest ones is our street maintenance agreements. We have agreements with most of the cities for providing services out in the urban growth boundary area or sometimes in the city based on where those are. The biggest one is with the city of Eugene, where we, in the River Road Santa Clara area, we maintain the roads, whether a city road or a county road north of Beltline. And then south of Beltline, the city maintains the county roads. So it's a more efficient way of divvying out that maintenance responsibility. We also have stormwater service agreements with the City of Springfield and the City of Eugene to carry out urban-level stormwater services within the urban growth boundary area as required by state law. So the cities extend their services out there so that the county, we don't have to create a duplication of services, and that's a cost savings for us in the long run, not having to develop a full program of our own. We also work with the Greater Oregon Fleet Cooperative to be able to buy our fuel at bulk prices. We work intensely, Michael, with the Lane Regional Interoperability Group, who we know as LRIG, which is our radio system across the county. And then at parks, we have some key partnerships for the Howard Buford Recreation Area. Those two are the Friends of Buford Park and the Mount Pisgah Arboretum. They provide thousands of hours of work at that park, and they're just invaluable for what they do. And then we do intensive planning with our local partners in the metropolitan area, Eugene, Springfield here. Commissioner Lycan sits on the committee there with the Metropolitan Planning Organization. A lot of partnership projects there to partner on improvements in the metropolitan area. And then finally, I just want to call out for the Waste Management Division, Bring has been a long-time partner with us. They provide services for businesses to help them learn to recover more materials from their waste streams, and educational services. They provide tours and in-school instruction. And we're about to launch a new partnership with them to increase the amount of construction and demolition materials that we'll recover from the waste stream. So our slide here, we had fun with this. So as I talked about in December, we had a major disruption of our leadership. We've continued on uninterrupted, really without a hiccup, due to the outstanding work of this all-star cast here.
It's good. You're going to play some music along with it?
Yeah, I know. I wish I could make them, next year we'll make them move around sometime. But these are all experts in their field.
Thank goodness Ms. Kay's there to hold it together.
Yeah, this was fun. I can't remember, I think Jeff had that idea. Berlin, yeah. At our practice meeting for this when he saw the boxes. We threw this together. It was fun. But this team is fantastic, and they get along better than the Brady Bunch, and continued on just in amazing professional fashion through this huge disruption. Top left there we have Lance Inglet. He came to us, our newest addition to the team, about 4 months ago. Just retired from the Army National Guard as a colonel, 29 years of service to the military, was able to bring in an outstanding a degree of leadership and knowledge of processes and procedures in the Army that are transferable to Public Works. He's been a huge asset during this time of transition and a huge help to me. In our green box here, Peggy Kepler is our county engineer. She's an American Public Works Association recognized top 10 leader. With the increase of over $34 million to our capital improvement plan over the next 5 years, I wouldn't want anyone else at the helm than Peggy. We have Corey Fuller here somewhere behind me. Shrewd businessman, has completely turned around Lane Event Center to a profitable venture where we're now able to take those profits and invest them into the facilities that need some work so that we can improve those and then market those better and generate more business at the facility. On Heaton, I already introduced, but again, the mastermind of our budget world here. She also takes on a lot of special projects for the department, assistance to division managers as they do analysis projects in their various areas. We have our adept fleet manager, Michael Johns, who also came from the Army, managing fleet systems all over the world. He's quite a jack of all trades at this point, managing our radio systems, LRIG, animal services, most recently facilities or custodians. Lots of great work there. Oren Schumacher behind me also, our road maintenance division manager. This is our largest division. Oren is very skilled at dealing with all the personnel issues that come with managing a large division, very technically skilled at road preservation and working with the public. We had a community meeting for Bernhardt Creek. We're going to be closing that road for 3 months during the day. A lot of concerns there with the community. Oren handled those very well at that public meeting. We have Lydia Kay here, who actually wears 2 hats as our division manager for Land Management Division and as our planning director. She's also incredibly skilled at working through the complexities of land use. Lane County has some of the most complex land use regulations in the country, and nobody knows them better than Lydia here. We have Charlie. Charlie Conrad is our interim parks manager. He's been doing that since last fall. Charlie is a very skilled analyst and brings that to the table as well as leadership during this time of transition. Thank you, Charlie, for all your service there. And then the bottom right here, I love that face, Jeff Orlandini. He has backfilled me as the Waste Management Division Manager. He was formerly one of our fee collection supervisors. He's a high-energy leader, very, very smart, and has been able to keep things running smoothly while I've been doing this interim role here. So that's the dynamite team there. And before I pass this on to the division managers, I want to touch briefly on the Lane County Strategic Plan. As you're all probably aware, the county recently adopted a significant update to our strategic plan, setting our priorities for the next 3 years. And we'll be working over the next few months to develop our public works plan that will align our work with this in the strategic priorities of safe, healthy county, vibrant communities, robust infrastructure, and our people and partnerships. In the safety realm, Lane County has the unfortunate ranking of having more fatalities of a county, of any other county in this state. So we need to put some emphasis on there, and we're doing that through our Transportation Safety Action Plan. We have a new interdisciplinary fatal crash investigation team, and our systemic engineering implementation team that's putting things in like rumble strips to keep people on the roadway and prevent those fatalities. Vibrant communities, Charlie's helping us wrap up our Parks Master Plan that has been more than 10 years in the making. We're excited to get a public review draft out this summer. Corey's will be working on a business plan soon for the Lane Events Center to be able to market our facilities better. And just the work of land use enforcement and development helps sustain our vibrant communities, making sure we're not having nuisance properties and helping the development community build their structures for economic development. In infrastructure, Peggy will be leading the charge on that, developing a bike and pedestrian plan, including safe routes to schools. As I mentioned, we'll be taking our 5-year road and bridge plan to the board here next week. Significant increase there, and Peggy will talk more about that. And then our solid waste master plan, we've been working on that for a few years too. Our previous plan is about 13 years old. It's time for an update to chart our course for solid waste management over the next 15 years. And then finally, our people and partnerships. I've talked about our partnerships already. including our street maintenance agreements, our regional transportation planning efforts, and our partnerships with non-governmental organizations such as BRING. But I also wanted to call out our advisory committees. We work with 5 advisory committees, including the Transportation Advisory Committee, Animal Services, the Fair Board, our Parks Advisory Committee, and the Planning Commission. And that involvement with the community is so essential to align our work and our priorities with the desires of the public. And we appreciate all the involvement of those advisory committees. And with that, I will pass the mic here over to Lydia Kay, and she will talk about our land management division.
Thanks very much. Great. Oops. Getting ahead of myself there. Okay, Land Management Division. So one thing I wanted to point out is the beginning of the mission statement here actually starts out with the phrase, through unparalleled customer service to the entire community. And this was something that was really important to the board, to have that be our primary focus when we talked with them last year about the strategic plan. And you'll see it's one of the 4 kind of areas that I think of in terms of the services that we deliver. So we have a land use planning department. We have current planning and long range. Current planning are the land use applications, legal lot verifications, zone changes, long-range planning, that's where we do our code updates. Our building safety program, that's kind of our largest program area. We do plan review, residential, commercial, inspections, plumbing, electrical, and have a sanitation program. We have a very small compliance program, but it's actually doubling in size, which is really exciting. We currently have 1 person who's been doing that program. Really since the recession, we've only had 1 person in that. So we're very excited. We'll be bringing on a 2nd individual to start next month and really be able to try and expand the services that we provide there. And then again, customer service, even though that's not something that we have one specific staff group appointed to, that's a big part of the work that we do in terms of answering questions, assisting people through the permitting process. The customer service center, I would say 50% of the people who visit that are coming to visit the land management division. 33.5 FTE, just for reference, right before the recession we had 44, and that dropped very rapidly to about 22 positions. 33.5 seems to be a reasonable amount. We're not adding any this year. It's always a challenge to keep up with the amount of the work that we have, but that seems to be a sustainable number. Just like to remind folks that the Lane County is predominantly made up of farm and forest land, and the state regulations are really about protecting that land. So we balance that with the need to do economic development. We have a lot of development pressures. There's especially housing pressures. So we're currently constantly balancing those 2 areas. Just some highlights from last year. We're really excited about implementation of our new electronic queuing system. That slide is one of them, but not ours. Ours is going to be much nicer. But what that will allow us to do, we'll have some monitors in the customer service center, which will let people see where they are in the queue and also what queue they're in, because it's not just land management services. We have parks, animal services, surveying, and so people can actually come in and see, oh, I'm in this line, and not get confused why somebody's being called up first. It will also provide managers who are often behind the scenes with an ability in real time to see what the volume is out there, so we can bring additional services when necessary. We'll be able to also, after a short period of time, there'll be an algorithm that we can put on our website so people can see. You've probably seen those in other places when our peak times are, which sometimes feel like always. So we're really excited about that. 4,000, almost 5,000 building permits and almost 1,100 planning permits. Our volume has been steadily increasing since 2008. And I'll talk a little bit more about how there's a little bit of a disconnect between the volume of work that we're seeing and the revenues, so we'll look at ways to address that. Thought about whether or not to put in one of the slides, but I really have to make a call out to our compliance folks there. This is one of the properties that we actually have the ability to go in when there's garbage, really direct land use violation, that we can either encourage the property owner to correct themselves through assessment of fees if they're not immediately responsive, or in some cases we can go and do abatement of those properties. So as Dan mentioned, we added a land management technician this year. That actually is a new program area. We now have 5 land management technician positions. Those folks are the people who are on the front line of providing the customer services. This is a new model for us. So instead of having planners or plans reviewers coming and providing those services, we're training this team of 5 folks to be proficient in all of the areas so people can come in, and often those questions are interlinked, obviously, between planning and land use and building, sanitation, so one person can answer those questions instead of sending people back and forth. The other position is a building safety specialist. This person is assisting us both with plan review and inspection, and something that is really welcome at this time of years. So I mentioned the slight disconnect between the revenues and the volume. We are looking at a fee increase, looking at bringing one to the Finance and Audit Committee and Board in the upcoming year. We haven't really done a significant increase since 2008. We made some slight adjustments in 2015, but we think it's really time to look at that and maybe look at a model like Waste Management has of doing an annual CPI, Consumer Price Index type of an increase. So we'll be talking with the board and finance and audit about that. One of our big challenges really continues to be the recruitment and retention of professional staff, especially in the building program. We've had for a number of years now just a real challenge in terms of the people who are available, who are trained and have the proper certifications. When we find those people, we're competing with other municipalities because they're in such short demand that they're asking for what the best deal is out there. One of the things that's just recently coming about, and it's still an evolving discussion, is the State Building Codes Division has issued an interpretation that says small cities can no longer contract out their building and inspection services, that each small city needs to have their own building official and electrical inspector. Most of the small cities just don't have the volume to be able to do that. Again, even if they did, I don't think there's those people available. So those services could fall to the county. We're talking about how we would be able to provide assistance and otherwise to the state. So like I said, that's something that's just happening very rapidly. There was not much notice about that. And so we'll continue to figure out how we're going to assist those cities where we can. We continue to see a high volume of appeals, and I know we've talked with commissioners about this a number of times over the past year and a half. Those appeals, we have a much higher rate of appeals than any other county in Oregon has. So we are looking at raising the fee. One of the fees is kept artificially low since 2008, so we're trying to make a proposal to raise that to make it be more aligned with what it actually costs to provide that service, because if we're not doing that, we're actually supplementing the fee. I will say that I've been looking at the data with regards to that, and the findings in terms of whether or not we are making correct decisions, 80 to 95% of the time we are making the correct decisions. So I'm really confident in the ability of our staff. Land use is complicated. We don't always get it right. There is definitely a role for that appeals process, but I think, again, we need to just make sure that it's being utilized for the right reasons and not as a deterrent to development. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to Charlie.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I'm Charlie Conrad. I'm the interim Parks Division Manager. So again, my first time here. So I appreciate being here and this chance to go through our budget and all the good things that we have going on this year. I'm excited about that. So our mission up there is the same that we've got going on in PAT for a while. I think it's going to change a little bit when we come up with our new Parks Master Plan, which should be this fall. Excited to get that going. But our mission is to provide parks that are safe, clean, and well-maintained and natural areas for a diversity of high-quality recreational experiences. And to do that, we really focus on serving the community. We want spaces that are open. We want people to attend them. We want to use them. And we want people to come have a positive experience, whether it's to have a barbecue or sit and relax and read or walk the dog or whatever they want to do. Come, enjoy, relax. And to do that, we've got a number of parks. We've got parks that are open spaces, just day use areas. We have 3 marinas that we operate. We have a handful of areas that we call just natural areas, just basically open, undeveloped, or minimally developed areas for people to go and enjoy. We have a number of boat ramps. One of our primary purposes is to provide water access throughout Lane County. We have 29 boat ramps or water access parks throughout the county, so that's a huge portion of our 63 parks that we have. And we also operate 5 campgrounds. 2 of them are open year-round, 3 are not. And then we included in that, or in addition to that, we have Camp Lane, which is an organizational camp, which is operate a little bit differently than the normal campgrounds, but overall we have 6 of those types of parks. Some of the things that we have, and I've got to thank Orrin and the roads crew very much. We work closely with the roads crew in a number of different ways. The picture up on the left is from a few weeks ago for the North Trailhead parking lot at Howard Buford Recreation Area. So the roads crew went out, and you can see at the bottom left, that's what it looked like back in December. We have a number of issues out there. A lot of people mudding, four-wheeling through there. And then Orrin's crew went through, and they developed and they constructed the parking lot up on the left. There's a little work that was done after that, and there's a little bit more to be done, but you can see there's a significant difference. And so again, adding to the experience for the people. We want people to go there. We don't want them, as Dan said, we don't want them to think about the parking lot. We want them to go enjoy their walk on Mount Pisgah. We also go through, and we have that cabin in the middle. That's for Camp Lane. We did that last year. We'll plan on putting some more cabins like that in there. Camp Lane is old. The infrastructure's just needs some work. And so we're going through and again trying to enhance the experience. Camp Lane is turning into a wedding destination, and so that's the clientele that we're trying to appeal to, is give them some quality structures, some quality facilities that they want to go and they can enjoy and have a wonderful day and have a wonderful experience. We do a lot with education, a lot with natural areas. Up on the right you can see that that's a partnership over at the Friends of Buford Park, doing a tour. We do nature tours. We have a great natural areas coordinator, Ed Alverson, and he does wildflower tours and walks, educating people, getting them outside, recreating. And down below, that's Westlake. That's a Westlake dock, just a little bit south of Florence. So that's out on the Silcoos. So again, we have a lot of water access parks and a lot of different infrastructure, a lot of different facilities we take care of. And to do that, we have 6 full-time maintenance personnel that do that, and so their ability to do everything, every aspect of construction and permitting, just blows me away every day, their base of knowledge. And again, some of our highlights from this year, the upper left corner, again working with the roads division, that's Trail 5 out at HBRA, Howard Buford Recreation Area. They did that this last, is that fall, Aaron? Or you remember? Last fall they went and did that. In conjunction with some of the partners out there. The Friends of Buford Park, they have a volunteer, Bill Montgomery, that does a lot of trail work, and that's his passion, and he does a great job at it. And that was one of the projects that we coordinated with him. On the right-hand side, this is a project that's ongoing, and it should be done hopefully here in a couple weeks. This was a big project for us. It's been going on for years. This is connecting Harbor Vista Campground to the City of Florence sewer. And we're told it's going to be opened on May 24th, so before Memorial Weekend, and we have a lot of campers out there that are anxious to get there. So we're connecting just about half of the campground to city sewer system and doing some other updates and improvements as well. And so we're excited to get that finally finished. And some of the other photos you can see, just again what we have to offer: boat ramps, picnicking areas, marinas. Overall, our system has 4,266 acres. 2,200 of that is HBRA. So that is a huge park for us in terms of both size and in terms of visitors. We get about 400,000 visitors a year out of that park alone. So our partnership with the Mount Pisgah Arboretum and the Friends of Buford Park is key in keeping that park up and going, operating, and looking beautiful. And then again, we have 3 marinas and 29 water access sites throughout the county. Some of our water access sites are a small parking lot and a boat ramp. Some are a little more substantial in terms of the amenities that they provide. And one of the big issues that we come across, particularly with such a large system, with a number of different infrastructures and park types, it's ailing infrastructure. We don't own all of our parks. We lease a bunch of them, particularly from the Army Corps of Engineers. The 4 parks that we have around Fern Ridge are all leased from the Army Corps of Engineers. We have them on long-term leases. The revetment on the right, that's at Perkins Peninsula, and you can see that that blacktop is failing. We've got to somehow address that. We also have failing infrastructure that we're now addressing. By that I mean tomorrow and this week. We have the revetment at Orchard Point day use area is dilapidated as well as concrete, and it's falling apart and breaking into the water. So we've got to do something with that as well. And that's one of our biggest hurdles, is that balance of regular maintenance versus some of these big, large infrastructure projects that we need to get taken care of. One of the big things that we did, which helped out because we are so small staff, is the transfer of animal services to waste management. That happened last fall, and what that did was that alleviated managing another separate division from the parks manager and the supervising analyst.
You meant general services.
What did I say?
Waste.
Waste, sorry. I didn't mean to keep you into something new. Waste, or general services.
Away.
It went away. It's gone. It's
Out of sight,
gone.
out of mind.
We are currently in the Parks Master Plan. That's been an ongoing effort for quite some time. And we had a meeting with our task force on that this week, and we're looking to hopefully get a public release draft this summer, do some public outreach, and hopefully get it before the board here, maybe October, November for adoption is our timeline that we're hoping to achieve. One of the other things that we're really looking at is, and we have an RFP out there right now, it closes in a couple weeks, we're doing a market fee analysis to look at our fees and our fee structures. It's been since 2013 that we updated anything, and so that's really what we want to look at, and I think that'll be helpful in terms of generating some revenue, because all the revenue we generate, we get to put back into our parks, and that's really what we want to do. We want to put the revenue right back to our parks and enhance that experience for our park users. And our park users, the demand is going up. You know, we're fortunate that since 2012, you know, based off the revenue, our campgrounds are full. You know, some of our campgrounds on the weekends, they're all full. You know, Friday and Saturday nights, we're 100% full throughout a good portion of our system, if not 95%. And even during the summertime in the middle of the week, we're still at 60 or 70% occupied. So there's a huge demand for a lot of our parks and a lot of our campgrounds. And the other, as I mentioned before, deferred maintenance continues to grow. A lot of our infrastructure that we have was 20 or 30 years old, and now we're seeing things that are starting to fail. And sometimes they fail at this time of year as soon as we start to unwinterize things, get pumps going again, start hooking up electricity and flipping the breakers. We find everything that failed over the winter. And so this is a time of year when things are going south for us a little bit, and our 6 rangers are out there trying to do everything they can. That's why adding one more ranger, which we're going to have over on the coast, is so key. We've got 1 ranger on the coast, so this is going to double the number of rangers that we have out there, which both help with the maintenance aspect of it, and then also compliance. You know, our rangers do 2 purposes. They do maintenance, and they do code compliance. So they go out and they check parking lots. They respond to issues and disputes in campgrounds. They respond to people illegally dumping, you know, homeless camps. Our rangers do a lot throughout the entire park system. So. And that is it. Any questions for me?
We're going to do them at the end.
Oh, at the end of the third thing. All right, very well.
All right.
Yeah.
Chair Henchman's committee members and commissioners. Let me see, I'm going to try this button. Nope, how about that button? My name's Orrin Schumacher. I'm the road maintenance manager with Lane County Public Works. I saw earlier today that Health and Human Services were all standing up, so that must mean it's healthy. So if you guys don't mind, I'm going to follow that trend and give you guys my talk. For those who have worked, I recognize most of the people in this room from previous committee. This is my 3rd presentation. Normally, I'm no paper in hand. That's normally my approach. This year, I wanted to have paper in hand because there are certain things I didn't want to miss about the roads division. And I want to highlight a lot of the human aspect of our roads division this year, because a lot of money is also human. And I want to kind of tie it together for you guys and paint a picture of what we are and who we are. These are our primary functions in road and bridge maintenance. Really, pavement preservation is the backbone of what we do. So there's kind of a definition of what those are. Striping and signage, for those people who don't know, we manage all the 22,000 signs out in the county roadways, plus we do all the striping work on our county roads. Bridge maintenance, I'll highlight that a bit because that's a big focus for us moving forward. And then the vegetation management program that we have, which is all of our roadside mowing, tree work, other related stuff for noxious and invasive plant control. You can see our total expenditures within our division and our FTE. We are now up to 89.5, which makes us the largest division in Public Works because of the vast system that we manage. I'll leave these here as pictures because large equipment always looks pretty. So I'll leave these there as I talk. I wanted to kind of highlight where we went this year, what we see in the future, kind of some of our staffing, and then some of these great projects and also challenges that we kind of see coming up. I started with Lane County in 2005, and I became the division manager for roads 3 years ago. The reason I bring that up is that on my first year in this position, on my first week, one of the first things I had to do was talk to 13 county employees that I was going to be laying off. Our budgets and our conditions were dire at the time, and it was hard. And the reason I bring that up is not only to paint a picture of what the budgets were and where we're heading now with some of the new budgets from House Bill 2017 and SRS monies, but what it means to the people that do this work. So we've got 89.5 FTE. Those are people that do this work for us, the men and women, and they have committed to this system through this process. They have been with me now for 15 years, not knowing if they'd have a job the next day, not knowing if they had a paycheck. They haven't griped. They've shown up every day. They've committed to this work, and they continue to do it. And we have the best road system in the state of Oregon because of these people diving in and entrenching through these tough times. So I wanted to paint that picture for you guys and show my admiration and pride of being part of that division and the folks that do that work. The men and women of roads deserve a pat on the back for the stuff that they've done, and I appreciate all the work they've done for the residents of Lane County. So there's where we're tagging money to people, and that's kind of the picture of what leads us to kind of the accomplishments of 2017-18 is that we had a first mild winter that we've had in 4 years. I don't know if you guys recalled that this year, but there wasn't a lot of snow and ice. But the previous 3 years there sure were. So it was the first break for us to catch up on a lot of backlog projects. One of the big things we focused on was trying to expand our chip seal program. With some of these additional monies, we're hoping to get back up and expand that to 80, 90 miles a year, and I'll go into that a little bit. We've also, as Dan said, we've built 5 more people into our bridge program. The audit of 2016, for those who knew we had an internal road audit, reflected that one of the weaknesses we had in our division, and I'll highlight, it was probably the only one weakness we had in our roads division, was the bridge program of 420 bridges for maintenance was falling behind. And that was really an impact of budget cuts in previous years because we had cut all of those people and their supervisor and did not have a dedicated bridge crew. When you have 420 bridges and not a dedicated crew to maintain them, you're going to fall behind. So what we did with last year's budget and your approvals is that we were able to find 5 more FTE to fill those positions, and we're getting them integrated into our system. The other thing is we've got 2 additional FTE planned in our vegetation crew. We adopted Ordinance 1603 last year, and that's going to expand our IVM program across the county, allowing us to hopefully tackle some of the more problematic areas we've had. Noxious and invasive plants are a continuing problem. So hopefully this will allow that, and we'll get those people trained into that. One other person I really want to highlight through this process that was adopted in the previous budget was our weighmaster. We had cut again that position during a lot of these critical budget decisions. Bringing that position back has shown leaps and bounds the benefits of it. I don't want to speak to the citation volume that's already occurred in the first 6 months, but I will say it's significant. What that showed is that people knowing a weighmaster was not on our roads meant that they could do the things that allowed them to make a little bit more profit and haul a little heavier loads. 10,000 to 1 is the ratio. So one loaded or overloaded truck is the equivalent of 10,000 vehicles of passenger size. So if you envision that impact and those going a little bit rogue, this position is critical. The other thing that I know commissioners have seen and the public has probably seen is the rash of abandoned vehicles. For some reason, we have a lot of people with extra vehicles that they like to leave on our roadsides. I don't have an extra vehicle, so I can't afford to do that. But and this includes RVs and campers. This is a huge problem, and we're going to have to face this moving forward. But our weighmaster is leading the charge with our sheriff's office to find solutions to that and get them out of the public's eye so they're not a nuisance in front of your properties, which I fully support doing. So all of those things are what the budget committee's approved for us to move forward over these years. This year, we're just asking for 1 additional FTE position, and that's going to be a lead worker on our Zone 1 crew. They're our crew based out of Eugene for maintenance, and they are also in charge of a lot of urban miles. So a lot of people probably don't know that within the UGBs of Springfield and Eugene, we do manage a large part of that system, all of the unannexed portions and roadways within there. So this position is going to help facilitate some of the movement forward in that program. So that's kind of the staffing and additions. This paints a picture of, again, kind of the robust nature. I always hear people say we're the size of, I think it's Rhode Island or Connecticut. I always confuse the two, but they both have good basketball programs, so I never really worried about it too much. One of the things I wanted to speak to, too, is moving forward, we are looking at a bright future for roads. What I'm seeing now, not only in the attitude of the employees at the work, is that we've got projects lining up. We're able to go forward and start doing increases in preservation. Some of the larger things that have sat there for over a decade now are being challenged, and we're going to start tackling them because we can. A lot of people drive our roads, don't think about what's under them. Galvanized culverts were a really common thing in the 80s and 90s and before. Well, they last 30 years. And we probably have over 40,000 of these across Lane County that go into our roadways. So we've really dug into tackling those, because if those go into disrepair, so do your roads. So we're seeing some funding and opportunity to go tackle those with the additional FTE. So some great stuff there. Again, I spoke to the additional mileage going up to 80 or 90 in chip seal. Chip seal is the backbone of what we do. It allows us to cover that many miles any given year. If you were just doing overlays, you wouldn't be able to accomplish that vast volume. So on all of our rural system, if we can get to 80, 90 miles a year, there was a function in the audit that said your kind of life expectancy of a road would be on a rotation of 10 to 12 years. With that volume, we would be able to accomplish that. So hopefully we can keep that up and keep that moving forward so we don't have the potholes. I saw Gary's commercial with the pothole in it, and I'm hoping that we can avoid any more of those. So, yeah. But hey, you fixed it, so we're good to go. So moving forward, this is a positive period for roads. After a decade of budget impacts and declines, we have hardened from experience, learned new strategies, trimmed where possible, and remain committed to a quality of roads that are safe, reliable, and cost-effective. For me, that is what our focus is, and our mission states that. And so does the strategic plan. If you look at all of those things, health and safety, infrastructure, and vibrant communities, that's what roads is we are allowing access and support of all three of those functions, and that's what I see us doing moving forward. And again, with the support of the Budget Committee in this process, I see that achievement and bright future for us moving forward. So. With that, again, I didn't cover a lot of the details. I know you guys are looking at the budget sheets, but I wanted to really paint a picture of more of the human nature and kind of how we get to where we do. So I appreciate you guys' time today. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Again, I'm Peggy Kepler. I've been with the county now for 2 years. I am managing the engineering and construction management team. And so we have several work sections within engineering construction services. We're beginning with our admin services. We have the responsibility of entering into contracts with outside organizations, contractors, and also consultants to design and construct capital improvements for the county. And when we talk about capital improvements, our main focus is the road and bridge side of it, but it does include helping out waste management or parks and the other divisions within the department. We also have our engineering services, which includes both design engineering, where we will have drafters, designers, engineers who are preparing the plans. We also have traffic engineering, which is really responsible for the operations of a roadway system. And so they set up traffic control, signage, and striping plans. Then we have our construction services, which includes our inspectors. We do project management. We will be contracting out with different organizations, agencies who are not what they call ODOT certified. They cannot deliver federal aid projects, where we have been in the process for the last 4 years becoming ODOT certified. So we can deliver federal aid projects for ODOT and non-certified agencies. We take those dollars and we can put them to work. And so we'll do project management. We'll go out and take on a construction project for any agency that has that need. We also have our own materials testing lab. We have 4 staff persons out there who bring in construction materials. They test those materials and they certify the quality and construction methods that are used. We have transportation planning. You've seen a lot of them over the years because they start out all of our process in engineering. We have from right-of-way line to right-of-way line, we look at how's the best way of using that right-of-way, whether it's pedestrians or vehicles, bicycles, also for drainage purposes. and that keeps them busy. They also work on facility permits because we have a number of outside utility franchise uses that want to use the right-of-way, so they have to have a permit. Homeowners that want to put in a driveway permit, so we go through a lot of facility use permits, and we also look at the land use management applications that come through, because those permits, those changes impact how we use our right-of-way. So we look at that and help land management. We also have surveying services. We do construction surveying. We also do what we call public land corners, which is all of the survey documents that comes all the way back to 1850 when we first had folks coming to Oregon and laying out properties there. We maintain those property corners. So we have 44 FTE, and our budget is around 11 million for capital improvements, and then we have about $6 million that we have in operating costs. I bring this up because one of the things that we've talked a lot about this afternoon is this capital improvement program that we have. In the past several years, we've had about $3 million a year that we have been focusing on pavement preservation. But with House Bill 2017, our workload has changed significantly. We are no longer looking at just the fog line to fog line kind of work. We are looking at from right-of-way line to right-of-way line. That's going to include pavement preservation. It's going to include more work on our bridges. We have a number of bridges that have been reviewed for seismic stability. They are not prepared to withstand a Cascadia event. So we're looking at our major routes and making sure that those bridges have a seismic upgrade to them. We also are doing more work in our infrastructure safety side of it. Last year we put together the transportation safety plan, and that action plan brought in also our systemic engineering implementation team that's looking at different best practices that we can put to work on the streets, like rumble strips, trying to keep people in the lane, and also focusing on redirecting distracted driving, and also other engineering methods that we can use to improve the safety of the roadway. We are also looking at general construction projects in the coming year. We've had a transportation system plan since the 80s, I think, and they just keep looking at the different 20-year program projects that are necessary for servicing the county. It has been a struggle to work on those projects. They're very expensive, but they also didn't match our budget for years. With the new proposal that we have, we can start looking at the TSP and identifying projects that we can actually start working on. And what we've done here is we've gone from 5-6 projects last year to 39 projects on our capital plan this year. And we're going to be working with the public a lot more on these projects, letting them know that we are out in the field. So we put together a website that identifies not only the capital improvements that we're working on, but also the county force work that's going on, the chip seal projects. They can see all the dots that are available. They can click on it. As they go click on it, it has a storyline on the side that actually describes the type of work that is being done and who they can contact for those projects. So that's been an exciting change in how we interact with the public. Last year we did 22 miles of overlay work. We did 7 miles of slurry seals, and we also did 7 deck replacements on our bridges. We also completed 2 roof repairs on the covered bridges. We also started implementing our safety measures. We did 15 miles of centerline rumble strips, This year, we are actually going to go to 35 miles of centerline rumble strips, but we're also looking at incorporating 20 miles of shoulder rumble strips on Marcola Road. Marcola Road was one where we've had a number of fatalities over the years. One of the higher fatality areas that we have. The only one above that is London Road. London Road is targeted this next 2-3 years. We're going to be doing a number of projects on that to help with the safety. But this year we actually are going to put rumble strips on the center line and the shoulders of Marcola. Some of the challenges and opportunities that we have is that even with the funding that we have, and we have increased 2 of our designers, we are actually working at full staff right now. We're still proposing 1 more analyst this budget season. There's a challenge in being able to fill all of those slots. So I feel very happy that we have the ones that we have. But the competition out there for engineering personnel right now is pretty high. With all of the agencies competing for skilled staff, it's difficult to bring them in. And so we'll be continuing to work with that. We have also some build grant applications that we'll be submitting this year for our Tiger, which was previously called a Tiger grant. We're going to be looking at territorial highway. We have some high extensive work that needs to be on territorial highway. We have a 5-mile section that we've had a number of outreach programs with. People want to see it from Gillespie Corners to Lorraine. They want to see those improvements. But in that area, we have 2 bridges that have flooding issues. We also have 3 slide areas that have to be repaired, and the roads need to be widened. And it's an estimate of $21 million just to do that 5-mile section. So we're going to be putting in for the build grant again. And we also have all of the TSP work that we have not been able to do in the past, but we're looking at trying to build up those projects again. And we're also looking at utilizing consultants to help us with the design, but consultants are expensive and they're as busy as we are, so getting them out, the projects out, is still a challenge. And we are also investing money in the seismic upgrades of the bridges and new equipment for our survey staff.
Yeah. We have about 10 minutes.
10 minutes, so fly through it.
Then I'll fly right through it. I'm Michael Johns, the General Services Manager. Prior to that, I was the Fleet and General Services Manager, and prior to that, I was the Fleet Services Manager. Same chair, same office, just 3 different titles. You can see we've grown from about 25 when I got here to over 50 now, not by growing Fleet, but by adding these other services to it. Our division, and as our expenditures, 3 different areas that have a little commonality that we're trying to work on. For example, mechanics in the Fleet Services Division can help custodial staff and building maintenance staff in some cross work. Having animal services, they're upfitting a new truck right now. They can come right into the Fleet guys. We're all in the same place. They can bring an issue to me and we get it taken care of. No problem. Some of the things we do, we cleaned out the fuel tanks up there on the left-hand corner that were full of sludge after not being cleaned out for 20-some years. So they're pumping nice clean fuel now. In the lower left is our network fleet system that lets us know where all our vehicles are all the time, which we're working to integrate with some emergency management and road systems. So, for example, if there was an ice storm and the roads had a bridge out that needed something, we could also say where the closest vehicle is that send it to them. Custodial services, the horse, it's not 2 separate horses, that's the same horse up there, that's Sugar. We impounded her from the 8 horses we took in Cresswell in January. That's on the left. She's just being impounded. We moved her in a stablemate up to a rescue in Sheridan. And this is her less than 90 days later. She's looking good, got a lot of weight put on her. Unfortunately, the other horse we had to euthanize because she had some medical issues that could not be taken care of. some of the highlights for our past year. Of course, some numbers, fleet maintenance, landscape and custodial services, more animal neglect, and demonstrate that I'm not only a manager of animal services, I'm also a customer. Those 5 dogs on the bottom row are all mine, and they're all rescue dogs too. So there's also 5 cats, but I had no luck getting them pictured. There's just some challenges and opportunities. The big thing is for mechanics is there's no pipeline for mechanics anymore. It's not a field that people want to go into. Our animal services, that's what that picture is. We're trying to get more outreach to improve compliance and licensing and vaccinations and spay and neuter. That dog there is Bernie. He's our senior animal welfare officer, is a certified rescue dog. So if the Cascadia subduction zone that Peggy was talking about blows and we're all buried under a building, that dog's going to come sniff us out and we'll get rescued. So thank you.
Thanks for leaving us with that. Well, there's hope.
And we've just decided that we're going to extend you. So
Okay, all right.
Slow back down.
Okay.
And we'll have time for questions.
All right.
Should I go back?
Chair.
We do want to leave.
Thanks, Jeff.
My name's Corey Buller, Lane Event Center Division Manager, as well as the Lane County Fair Manager. Thank you for your time. I'll keep it brief. We are, as Dan mentioned, an enterprise fund, so we generate our revenue from rental of facilities, rental of equipment, labor. We also receive a portion of transient room tax as part of our revenues. But what we do is we host community events, private events, and of course our county fair. So hopefully all of you have been out at some time or another and seen something that we do, and I won't spend all of your time on this, but we have everything from home shows to the logging conference to the Asian celebration to Comic-Con to a tattoo convention, you name it. If somebody can think of it, we'll find a spot for them. We'll pretty much rent anything. We're also seeing an increase in some of our private events, so things like fundraising banquets. We're getting some wedding receptions. We're getting quinceaneras that are coming in. So right now, the market is very good for us, and we're having some pretty fabulous years. I have lots of pictures. I won't waste your time with them, but we do get some pretty incredible things that come in and transform our buildings. They are old buildings, but with a little bit of work, they can turn into something quite fabulous. Some highlights for the last year. For the 3rd year in a row, we had an increase in our fair attendance, so we're very proud of that. We're up to over 114, or approximately 114,000 fair visitors. We've netted almost over 300,000 this year from the fair, which was higher than what we budgeted. That's great news. We've been able to take a little bit of that, put it into reserves, as well as put some into some capital projects to make some improvements. So we're very proud of that. All those events that come, we guesstimated about 750,000 people. Sometimes we don't get accurate counts from our clients, so that is a guesstimate at best. But they do generate a lot of event days on the ground. So I believe Dan mentioned 184 events, and that fluctuates year to year, but they rent our facilities for move-in days, move-out days, decorator days, you name it. All those things added up. We essentially have 1,250 contracted days out there through our facilities. And in case you're wondering, yes, hopefully everybody's heard the lineup for fair this year. It's Trace Atkins, Melissa Etheridge, Night Ranger, the comedian Bill Engvall, and High Ranger, or High Valley. Sorry. But what I'm excited about is something I've been working on for a few years now, and that is kind of getting us to the next level. We've been doing very well and very proud of what we're doing. My staff is fabulous, but we want to look toward the future. And so here in the last year and a half, we've had a facility condition analysis done of our buildings. It is a big number. We're aware of that. We were not shy about that. It's almost $27 million in deferred maintenance and capital projects that are needed out there. We've got a lot of old buildings ranging from the 50s and 60s. We need a lot of work done. We're aware of that. But what we're hopeful is what we got coming out this summer, which is a market demand analysis. So we're going to have a consultant come in. He's going to take a look at they'll take a look at our events and the community and the types of events that are out there, and give us some feedback on ways that we can identify new events, bring in new business. And we're going to tie that into our capital plan. So we're going to be looking at opportunities to make improvements to some of these old buildings and generate additional revenues and events into the future. So with that, that will be tied into a short-term business plan. And then I think we've talked about having a long-term master plan come out of that once those assessments are done. So, and that will keep us on track.
Thanks, Ray. Jeff Orlandini isn't able to be here today, so I'll cover waste management in his absence. So waste management, collection and transfer of 16 transfer stations. We have 1 active landfill. Recycling, we manage 27 different streams of recycling. We have our special and household hazardous waste programs. Landfills, we have a number of closed landfills out there that we need to maintain, and then we're always planning for the eventual closure of our landfill and maintaining adequate reserves for that eventual closure and post-closure care. Special projects, we're again working on that solid waste master plan that'll guide our efforts regionally and for the years ahead. We manage a Vector facility. This is where stormwater catchment basin waste goes to at the back of the Glenwood facility. And then education, we're trying to increase our education and outreach efforts in response to the need to communicate what's going on with the changes to recycling. We achieved a 50% recovery rate last year, so of all the waste, 50% of that we generate, half of it was diverted from the landfill for recovery, which is a great number and the highest county number in the state. And while that's great, it's actually lower than what we've been in the past, and we're trying to get to a 63% recovery rate by 2025. Commercial haulers, we made a change, the board authorized to make an operational change to make the hauler go directly to the landfill. That's saving us about $500,000 a year and was a key part of being able to help us close our structural budget gap. Compaction, that's our key efficiency measure at the landfill, how much garbage we can smash into a given amount of space. We achieve over 2,000 pounds of waste per cubic yard, which is at the high end of industry standards, so we're quite proud of that. We're working to achieve higher recovery rate. One of the ways we're doing that is increasing our electronics recovery, so we've added free electronics recovery programs at 3 transfer stations. We do get reimbursed by the state for those programs. Highlights, again, over 40 million tons of waste at the landfill. We transport about 10,000 tons of recycling in addition to all the recycling efforts out there in the community to help us get that recycling rate. We've added days of service to our hazardous waste collections. We have a facility out there that provides free household hazardous waste collection for residents and low cost for businesses. Some of the changes and opportunities here. We've added a new position. We had 1 waste reduction specialist. We've added another one, doubling that program to be able to do more efforts around waste recovery and educating to the public. We've added a special waste technician, our first female in the program. Good to be having more females in sort of a male-dominated industry. We're excited to have her on board there providing those special waste services. And a couple road maintenance. These are equipment operators, even though we call them road maintenance, but they're in waste management. But we've had an increasing tonnage over the last 4 years, so to be able to accommodate that increasing volume of waste, we needed to add some people. Recycling, again, trying to get out there to the public. We're trying some new things like Facebook Live, some new educational materials, and then I talked about the challenges with the price of marketing our materials. All right, passing on to Lance here.
Just a minute ago. Yep. Okay. Thank you. In an essence of time, I will actually stick to a script on this, Chair, Commissioners. As first slide indicates, we have 4 main functional areas, and the key component takeaway from this is it's leveraged to provide quality support to the public and internal customers. And admin services plays a role in virtually everything that Public Works does. It's important to highlight here, this doesn't occur if on the previous slide you saw there are 19.5 employees that work in there. They're the worker behind the Public Works, or as some have said, they're the grease that's in the wheel, coming to work every single day behind the scenes to make it happen. Highlights from the 17-18 outcomes, there are three. The center one is just that it's supporting the 7 divisions as well as itself for the 8. But the 1,905 safety hours of training is approximately 3.8 hours per employee on an average increase for those that are going to go do the roads. But what that's done for the county in the past year is it's reduced workman comps claims, it's reduced the number of accidents, work accidents, and improved our ability to be able to preserve equipment and not lose time with the safety that's integrated. And I put the 10,432 paychecks that have been delivered through that office is because if you see on this final slide, it's a trade-off. People come to work with that passion to serve and the drive to connect, but the trade-off is their energy and that professionalism that you've heard each of the other departments talk about is rewarded in the compensation that's paid. In the labor market, it's important that we pay people on time, that we provide them those things that we promised them, and this is the group of individuals that ensures on a daily basis that that happens, a very key component to retention. New to this, and it was already discussed in the opening, is the contracts person for Public Works. And for example, last year there was 166 contracts that were maintained, and you've heard that there's going to be new contracts let. It's good business process to have a central person that focuses in just on that to preserve money and ensure that we're getting what has been contracted and keep the contractors in line in an environment where consultants are competitive. It also provides a new service. The big one and a big impact is the restoration of the grants position. I think we believe that there's an opportunity to seek different funding sources or partnerships if we have somebody that's dedicated to reach out and take advantage of some of the opportunities that may cover some of the other budget gaps. And the final one is if you take all of the employees, what was talked about in the Fairs Division, or you think about the roads crew and the part-time and temporary seasonal individuals that support this mission of Public Works, we're touching the lives of about 673 Lane County residents on an annual basis. And that fluctuates a little bit, but when you put all those together, that really is how we're connecting with the community in addition to seeing them at the CSC. Subject to your questions, that concludes my brief.
Thank you. All right, and sorry to go over on time. Appreciate the extra time.
No, we're good. We're good. We're good.
So,
question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I only have one word, Waymaster. We just need more resources there. There's a lot to be said about it, but not enough time to say it.
Challenging area, yes.
Mine's centered around building permits. I think we added a person last year, right?
We had one half time.
Right. We're hoping, I think permitting times are going to go down and hopefully total permits up, I think, right?
That's always the goal, absolutely, yes.
Did we get anywhere?
I would say our permitting times are sort of, they're not as great as I would like them. We're not in the 2 to 3 week range, which would be ideal. I don't think most municipalities can make that. They're more than 3 to 4 weeks, depending on the complexity. I think some of those efficiencies that we talked about, getting the land management technicians out front, trying to really streamline the customers who come in. As much as we love to serve our customers, they do take our plans examiners away. So we're constantly looking to improve that.
And then one more. So it was like 4,900 permits, building permits issued last year. What was the year previous? Do you know?
That was at least a 15% increase.
Thanks.
Thank you. Other questions?
So for our discussion tomorrow, usually we get a complete rundown of the road fund, separated from all other funds in detail. And I'd love to see that road fund in detail. In particular, I'd like to see what the difference between what was originally estimated for harvest revenue versus the SRS, and knowing what that is for the next 2 years, that 2-year difference. I'd also, I heard it mentioned, but again, just understanding what the excess reserves are that are going to get reinvested as one-time money also. And I know we were going to get presented this next week at the board, but I think I need it in advance, and that's the CIP. Because there's some opportunities for us with SRS funds that are usable for multiple purpose, and I want to understand what I'm trading off if I choose to redirect SRS funds and how those SRS funds are intended to use them. but I need all that information and understand the trade-offs there. It was magic money that came in unexpected in March. We all didn't think we were going to ever get a re-up of SRS, and I want to understand what the trade-offs are and where the best bang for the buck in using those funds is. And with the CIP that's based more on House Bill 2017, I want to kind of see what the long term is too. With a $4 million in transfer of SRS money, how it impacts the total five-year CIP.
We can absolutely provide the road fund detail and the CIP shortly. I'm not sure about the projected versus actual on harvest.
No,
I think we usually counted on about $800,000 a year or so.
We're actually doing $1 million this year already to the sheriff's office, is that transfer.
So I was prepared in your tomorrow agenda to discuss the road fund reserve, the secure rural schools, and House Bill 2017 and what we're seeing compared to what was estimated. I do not have a forecast updated, and there's no way that I can do one in 2 hours, which is the amount of time I would have tomorrow to prepare it for our presentation. I'm sorry, I didn't know that was going to be requested, but I think that the information I have prepared for you will give you a lot of what you're looking for.
Well, the CIP also will give me a lot of information.
Right.
I can understand we do know what's coming in SRS-wise over the next 2 years.
Right.
And how that compares to the total CIP that we're projecting.
And I have a detailed plan to share with you on what we anticipate spending that SRS on.
Okay.
And that is all ready for tomorrow.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
And then Sid had a question that he wanted to ask earlier, and it was put off to the end. If you'll send me that question in the morning, we'll bring it in.
Maybe tomorrow we hopefully have some time.
Yeah, but if he comes in the morning, just email it to me and I'll bring that with us. I don't know if he will.
We have the 17th, too.
We can't hear you down here.
In discussion, putting pressure on Public Works to answer Commissioner Bozavich's question, just remind everybody that we could enter or spend some time on that on the 17th. If that gives Tanya time to do what's being asked. Tanya?
What? Sorry.
Is the 17th enough time to get some of the information we're requesting?
That's on Thursday?
Week from tomorrow.
Week from tomorrow.
I can do my best. Yes.
You always do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see. You may give me enough information tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Sleep well tonight.
Okay.
Okay, and no committee business, we're adjourned. Thank you.
All right. There.